What if the object known as 3I/Atlas isn't a comet at all? What if it was never a frozen wanderer drifting from a distant star, but something else entirely? Something that was sent, not by chance, but by choice. What if, right now, a machine older than humanity itself is slipping silently through our solar system, watching, recording, deciding, you're lying still. The world is quieting down, and out there, somewhere beyond the planets, beyond the familiar paths, something is moving. No lights, no sound, no obvious purpose, just motion, measured, deliberate, impossibly precise. On July 1st, 2025, we saw it. The Atlas system, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert system, picked up a glimmer in the void. Too fast, too far, too strange. A visitor from beyond. Only the third interstellar object we've ever seen. We called it 3I/Atlas, but names don't explain anything. They only mark the mystery. This object, it didn't curve lazily into orbit. It didn't fall into the sun's pull like a wandering comet. It cut across space at over 60 kilometers per second, nearly 140,000 miles per hour, like an arrow shot from a place we've never seen. And its path was not random. It's heading between planets. A close approach to Venus, then Mars, then Jupiter. The odds of that exact sequence happening by chance? Half of 1% of 1%, 0.005. As if someone plotted the journey. As if it came to observe, not collide, not communicate, just observe. And yet, it glows. Not like a typical comet which brightens as sunlight melts ice and releases gas. 3I/Atlas started glowing long before it was close enough to the sun. Carbon dioxide, mostly, cold gas released in a steady breath, not a burst. No water vapor, no dust trail, just CO thash, controlled, clean, like it was regulating its own temperature, or perhaps revealing itself just enough to be seen. The coma, that ghostly shell that surrounds it, is symmetrical, steady, not a chaotic plume of ice and particles, but something subtler, something calculated. Telescopes record the light bouncing off its surface, and what they see is strange, too smooth, too even, as if it weren't tumbling, but turning slowly, deliberately, on a single axis. This isn't how comets behave. It isn't how rocks drift. It's more like a probe, something stable, something built. Maybe it's natural, maybe it's not, but the more we study it, the less it looks like an accident. And here's the chilling part. It's been inbound for 8,000 years. That's how long ago it would have crossed into the furthest reaches of our solar system. 8 millennia ago, when humans were just beginning to farm, build homes, shape copper into tools. When fire still felt like magic, and the stars were only stories. It's been moving toward us since then, quietly, without deviation. It's as if it was waiting for us to become visible, as if it timed its arrival, for now, when Earth shines with electric lights, when our satellites orbit, when our voices echo across space in every direction, when we are finally loud enough to be noticed. Maybe this was the trigger. Our noise, our growth, our emergence, and maybe someone or something sent 3I/Atlas to take a closer look. It won't stop, it won't land, it won't speak, but it passes close enough to measure, to listen, to watch. A cosmic drive-by, a quiet evaluation. And we saw it, just barely. What if that was the test? Whether we'd notice, whether we'd look up. Imagine a civilization somewhere out there waiting for us to open our eyes, not ready to talk, not ready to intervene, just watching to see who we become. And that raises a different question. What do we look like from the outside? A species capable of launching rockets, but not stopping war, a world full of beauty and contradiction, technology and chaos, curiosity and fear. What does 3I/Atlas see when it looks back at us? Maybe it's just a comet, an ancient traveler, an accident of gravity and time. That's possible, that's reasonable, that's safe. But what if it sits not? What if it's a message from a past too distant to imagine, or a future that doesn't include us at all? What if it's the first chapter of something much bigger? The universe is old, we are young, and this might be our first glimpse into something ancient and intelligent, something that doesn't need words or radio signals or ships shaped like saucers, just a rock, just motion, just presence. And now you've a part of the story. Because you were aware, because you looked, because you wondered. Before we go deeper into this mystery, I want to ask you something. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? What city, what country, what part of Earth are you lying on as your mind drifts into the stars? Let me know in the comments. I read them, I treasure them, and I'd love to know where this story is finding you. It's beautiful to know these thoughts are being shared all across the world. And if this journey into the unknown brought you comfort, if it helped slow your thoughts or made you feel less alone in the dark, a like would mean the world. It helps this story travel farther and reach others who might need it too. And if you'd like to come with us through all 30 parts of this quiet mystery, subscribe. You're already part of the journey. Now take a breath and let the silence guide you deeper. It hasn't changed course, not once. No deviation, no spiral, no decay, just quiet, calculated movement through the inner solar system, like it was always meant to pass this way. Most comets, asteroids, even wandering interstellar objects, they spin, tumble, jitter through space like ancient wreckage tossed by time. But not this one. 3I/Atlas maintains a slow, even rotation, not chaotic, not natural, some say. Or if it is, then it's the most stable accident we've ever witnessed. Its approach is clean, the velocity, consistent, the glow, steady, as if it's conserving energy, or hiding strength, or simply following instructions written in its very structure, a path that doesn't change because it was never meant to. And still, it says nothing. It emits no signal. It offers no data. But maybe, just maybe, that is the data. The silence, the restraint, the refusal to break pattern. Maybe that's the message. Or maybe we're not meant to receive anything at all. Maybe we're just meant to see, to notice, to become aware of what might exist beyond us. And once you see something like this, once you let the possibility root itself in your mind, it doesn't leave. You can't unsee it. You can't unknow it, whether it's artificial or not, natural or not, alien or not. 3I/Atlas does not belong here. And yet, here it is. If it was built, then whoever built it did so for endurance, not speed. For longevity, not reaction. Maybe it's not here for us at all. Maybe it was never about Earth. Maybe it was launched eons ago, with no destination, just a path through the stars, and we happened to fall into it. Maybe it has passed through 100 systems before ours. Maybe it's passing through 100 more after. But then again, its precision is undeniable. Passing by Venus, then Mars, then Jupiter, on a route that just happens to align with our most habitable planets, with our brightest radio signatures, with our clearest technological footprints. If you were studying a solar system, mapping it, measuring its potential for life, this is the exact arc you'd want. This is how you'd get the best view. One pass, 3 targets, and gone. No fuel expended, no correction burns, no propulsion needed. Just gravity, just timing, just engineering so old it appears natural. That's the unnerving thing about objects like this. If they're real, if they're deliberate, they wouldn't look like our machines. No thrusters, no antennae, no flashing lights. They'd be disguised as rocks, as ice, as comets. They'd blend into the cosmic background like driftwood on a tide. Because anything that reveals itself too soon might not survive the encounter. That sips the logic of the dark forest. That old idea that in the vastness of space, civilizations stay silent. Not because they don't exist, but because they do, and silence is safety. In a forest full of predators, the quietest species survives. And if we're in that forest, then maybe 3I/Atlas is one of the quiet ones, watching us without revealing itself. But maybe it doesn't need to hide. Maybe it's not a scout at all. Maybe it's a warning, or a benchmark, or a beacon waiting to be activated by something we haven't done yet. Maybe it's inert until we send the right signal or cross the wrong threshold. Or maybe it's just watching to see whether we notice. And we did. Barely. Most people don't know it exists. Most telescopes missed it. Most radars couldn't lock on, if not for the perfect sequence of observations. The right sky conditions, the right timing. We'd never have seen it. And even now, most people don't know what 3I/Atlas is, or what it could be. And maybe that SIP's part of the design. The ones who see it are the ones asking questions, the ones listening, the ones ready. But ready for what? That SIP's the part we can know. It's not slowing down, it's not turning, it's not deploying anything, it's just continuing, exactly as plotted, exactly as expected, which is precisely what makes it suspicious. It passes through our gravitational influence without reacting, as if unaffected, as if it's shielded from our pull, or perhaps as if it expected the pull and compensated long ago. We never intercepted anything like it, because we can sit. Even our fastest spacecraft, the ones pushed by the sun's own gravity, can't match this speed. They can't catch it. They can't rendezvous. The window of opportunity closed before we ever knew it existed. So we're left to observe from afar, like children peering through a window at something ancient, untouchable, and gone too soon. It wants to come back. Its path takes it beyond Jupiter into deep space, where no human eyes will see it again. It becomes another point of light among countless others, drifting outward, carrying whatever secrets it holds into the void. But while it's here, it reflects sunlight. It glows faintly. It gives us something, even if it's only wonder. And isn't that enough? To wonder is to stretch beyond the known, to place your mind somewhere the body can't follow, to imagine what could be even in the silence, especially in the silence. And right now, in that silence, something is moving. You can almost feel it. Not just the object, but the idea of it. The presence of something that doesn't fit. That challenges assumptions, that opens the mind. Because if 3I/Atlas is alien, even in the most technical, indifferent sense of the word, then everything changes. If it's artificial, it means intelligence exists elsewhere. If it's natural, it means the universe can sculpt things that mimic design. If it's accidental, it means randomness has structure. And if it's deliberate, it means we were seen. It means we were on the map. And maybe we always were. It slides onward, indifferent to our urgency, carrying with it questions that echo in the quiet places of the mind. Imagine the object as a slow punctuation in a sentence written by the cosmos, a comma that separates eras, an ellipsis that stretches between then and now, between what we were and what we might become. The more we try to place it into tidy categories, comet, asteroid, probe, the more it resists. It insists on being both more and less than our words allow. It refuses explanation, and that refusal is its presence. As it moves, telescopes collect photons that have traveled across unimaginable emptiness to reach our detectors. Those photons are messages, tiny, patient messengers, carrying encoded histories of surface texture, chemical makeup, and the faint memory of radiation it absorbed on its voyage. Scientists translate those photons into data, numbers on screens, graphs that climb and dip like small mountains. From those numbers, theories grow, speculation blossoms. But the object itself remains mute, a dark and distant participant that gives only the barest hints, as if to teach us restraint. When you picture it, let the image be simple. A dark body, not merely dirty ice and rocky detritus, but something formed with properties that confuse us. A surface that reflects light in ways we cannot easily categorize, a coma that exhales carbon dioxide while water stays locked in sleep. Consider the slowness of its rotation, the deliberate, almost ceremonial turning that suggests balance, not chaos. Imagine the curve of its path as the arc of a careful observer, sweeping in close to the planets to see them from different angles, to sample the signatures of atmospheres and magnetic fields arranged like jewelry around a host star. It approaches Venus to feel the thickness of the clouds that hide an inferno, then swings outward to glimpse the cooler, dust-blown plains of Mars, and farther still to skirt the massive kingdom of Jupiter with its storms and moons, each encounter a different camera angle, a different way of reading a world. There's a strange intimacy in that itinerary. Think about how you observe another person, not in a single glance, but over many small interactions, watching them in different moods, at different times of day. Perhaps that's what this object is doing. Perhaps it was designed not for one blunt inspection, but for patience, for a slow, multifaceted study that traces the outline of a civilization, as you might trace the outline of a face. From a particular approach, planets reveal certain features, atmospheric composition, radio noise, thermal patterns, that together construct a composite portrait of habitability and technology. A single close pass, carefully timed, can read more than 100 hurried flybys scattered over random angles. And yet, the object shows no overt signs of instrumentation, no parabolic dishes unfurling like metallic flowers, no appendages extending to collect matter, no bursts of electromagnetic chatter that betray an onboard transmitter. It remains elegantly anonymous, its surface doing all the work. In that silence is cunning, or perhaps wisdom. If you were a species capable of sending reconnaissance across the gulf between stars, would you risk the survival of your craft by making it conspicuous? The slow, cautious option would be to dress it in the language of the environment itself, let it pass as a comet or an asteroid to any eyes that are not trained, while those who know how may still glean its true nature. Consider too the engineering problem this implies. To survive interstellar travel, to retain structural integrity after eons of exposure to cosmic rays, micrometeoroids, and the soft but insistent pressure of stray photons, requires materials that endure. Perhaps the object's composition is not native to our models. Perhaps it uses alloys or composites beyond our current catalogue, materials that repair themselves under radiation, that shrug off degradation, and keep instruments protected in a husk that looks like ice. Or maybe the longevity is achieved without moving parts, through cleverly arranged geometry and chemistry, passive systems that do their work through shape and composition, rather than motors and consumables. The very possibility expands the definition of what a machine can be. The timing of its arrival pulls at stories we tell ourselves. Civilizations early in their technological trajectory go through brief phases of visibility. Radio broadcasts leak into space like lanterns set adrift on a silent ocean. Early radar reflects off planetary neighbors. Megastructures do not suddenly appear, but the aggregate glow of industry changes a planet's albedo, its thermal signature. If anyone were watching, looking for signs of a species capable of building starfaring machines or launching detectable probes, now would be a fine time to take note. We are loud compared to our pre-industrial past. We are luminous in a way we were not a few centuries ago. Perhaps that is precisely why something like this reaches us now, having slept for millennia and slumbered through epochs that predate our beginning. Yet there is a deeper, quieter question. What does it mean to be observed? On the human scale, observation changes behavior. People straighten when a camera is present. Markets shift under scrutiny. Governments act differently when the world watches. If an object watches a whole planet, what does it observe besides technological markers? Perhaps it measures the textures of society, the rhythms of conflict and cooperation, the pace at which we address collective threats, the ways we use information. A truly advanced intelligence might not be interested in hard metrics alone. It might be more concerned with whether a species can govern itself, whether it can curtail self-destructive impulses, whether it can protect its biosphere long enough to become a partner in a wider network. A probe in that humane hypothesis would be less of a scout than a steward, someone peering in to check how a civilization fares against its own worst tendencies. There is also the psychological reality of contact, or near contact. The knowledge that something foreign has come close can rearrange priorities. Institutions form committees and task forces. Philosophers dust off old essays and reframe them for public audiences. The act of knowing that you are observed by the cosmos lifts certain questions to the front of collective conversation about ethics, stewardship, and the legacy we intend to leave. Whether or not 3i/Atlas intends to interfere, its mere passage shifts narratives. It makes humanity imagine itself through the eyes of something that is not human, and imagination often precedes action. Scientists are not immune to narratives. They are, in fact, story makers at heart, using data to write drafts about the universe's behavior. Their speculations are cautious, framed within peer-reviewed skepticism, yet the undercurrent of wonder in labs and observatories is palpable. There are teams cataloging spectral lines, researchers fitting models to thermal curves, graduate students writing code that compares predictions to measurement. Late at night, over cups of cooling coffee, they trade rumors about oddities they cannot yet publish, subtle spectral features that defy common compounds, micro-variations in brightness that suggest geometry rather than random dust. In those moments, the community is both practitioner and poet, translating numbers into possibilities. But the public doesn't have to wait for peer review to feel the effect of such a visitor. When news filters through, quietly, sometimes because the signal can be faint and the truth must be slowly sifted, the popular imagination ignites. Art responds. Music swells. Authors draft scenes of first encounters that lean more toward the contemplative than the catastrophic. The cultural output from a single anomaly can be enormous. And cultural output changes how a species thinks about its future, about its responsibilities, about the stories it will tell its children. A passing object becomes a mirror, reflecting not only the physical properties of our world, but the philosophical stance we take toward our place in a much older, vaster timeline. There is also the operational reality. Agencies coordinate to monitor the visitor. Observatories exchange time slots. Radio dishes turn and listen. Space agencies consider whether anything even remotely plausible could be attempted, but practicalities set limits. Spacecraft take years to plan, launch, and steer. Interception requires both time and resources we rarely have on demand. Even now, as engineers calculate speeds and trajectories, the simple truth is that 3i/Atlas is not waiting. Its clock is independent of ours. We can observe and plan. We cannot catch. The asymmetry is profound. It's a humbling reminder that human capabilities, though prodigious, are bounded by physics and by the timelines imposed by distant designs. That asymmetry plays into the stories we tell about future contact. If visitors are patient and long-lived, they may send probes like this one to pass by, to record, and to move on. If visitors are transient and impulsive, their methods might be different, but the presence of patience suggests certain social structures, civilizations that operate on scales that dwarf human political cycles, that invest across millennia, that entrust knowledge to artifacts meant to outlive their creators. The idea of building for the far future is almost alien to a species with short institutional memory. Yet if it is a defining criterion of cosmic civilizations, then patience becomes an evolutionary advantage. In the minutes and hours and quiet days after detection, conversations spread into places beyond telescopes. Ethical scholars debate the implications of acknowledging contact. Religious communities ponder whether sacred text anticipated such a visitor. Economists speculate about market impacts. Artists imagine scenes where children grow up with skyward curiosity, and families, many who never read scientific papers, turn to windows and look up, searching for a faint smear or a line of light that might match the description streaming across the internet. For a moment, the world tilts toward a single axis of curiosity. Everyone, everywhere, participates in an act of collective attention. And attention matters. In ecosystems, a shift in attention can trigger behavior change. Predators notice prey patterns and adapt. Creatures migrate based on subtle cues. For an intelligent species, greater attention to planetary stewardship can mean better policies, more conservation, more collaboration for common goods. Whether or not the visitor cares, the fact that it draws attention becomes its most practical effect. It functions as a catalyst for introspection. But there is also fear. Fear is a natural sibling of curiosity. In some minds, the image of an interstellar object transforms into a harbinger of danger. Stories of invasive forces, of pathogens carried across light years, of technology mismatches cascade through internet forums and late-night conversations. The human mind is skilled at seeing threats in the shadows, because detection of danger has offered survival advantages for millennia. Scientists, aware of the social dynamics, try to soothe and inform, explaining probabilities and physical constraints. The result is often a measured calm in official channels and imaginative conjecture in the public square. Beyond emotion and speculation, the slow arc of data continues to accumulate. Each night, as dark pools of sky open over different observatories, new observations tighten models. Polarimetry adds nuance to the surface reflectance. Infrared curves hint at thermal inertia, slight non-gravitational accelerations. If confirmed, may challenge explanations based purely on outgassing. Every small piece of evidence narrows the set of possibilities, like a sculptor shaving away excess stone. The process is methodical, iterative, human. And yet, no single night delivers a revelation. The visitor resists being solved by a single glance. That is part of its quiet power. It forces a prolonged conversation, a chain of curiosity that may stretch across seasons. It converts a fleeting headline into an ongoing engagement. It compels a species not merely to react, but to cultivate sustained inquiry. There is a lesson in that patience, a model for how knowledge grows incrementally, collaboratively, across time. Close your eyes for a moment and feel the patience of that march. Feel the slow onward motion that ignores our deadlines and our anxieties. Let the rhythm of its orbit calm the pulse of human haste. There is something almost meditative in the thought of a thing that travels so long and so far with no rush, carrying a private archive of encounters and conditions beyond our imagining. It is a reminder that the cosmos operates on scales where urgency is a human attribute, not a universal one. While we are busy organizing committees and publishing papers, the visitor moves, indifferent and immutable. It will not be swayed by our debates. It will not answer our questions because we ask them. If it is a probe with a purpose, that purpose is not ours to edit. If it is a natural body, it follows the logic of orbit and composition with quiet fidelity. Either way, its passage is an invitation to expand our patience, to think beyond cycles of hourly news, to imagine futures that outlast political seasons and market quarters. And in that invitation lies a quiet responsibility. If we are indeed being observed, then what we do matters, not only for ourselves but perhaps for whatever catalogue keeps watch. Whether the observer is benevolent, neutral, or indifferent, The act of being seen creates consequences. We are at the cusp of recognizing deeper relationships with our cosmos. There will be choices about disclosure, about collaboration, about how we steward our world in an age where awareness may have cosmic ramifications. So we keep watching, we keep learning, we keep living. The object moves along its trajectory. No hurry, no flourish, and the human story bends around it, threading fresh questions into the fabric of our days. The presence of something that does not belong here becomes a pivot point, subtle and wide-reaching, nudging curiosity, ethic, and imagination in ways that may last far beyond the moment of observation. The universe, once perceived as an indifferent backdrop, suddenly feels like a place where being noticed can change how a civilization sees itself. And in that change, perhaps, the most extraordinary contact occurs. And still, it moves, silent and endless, between gardens of planet and storm, like a patient traveler reading our lights as you might read the slow breathing of a sleeping city. It moves without hesitation, a line drawn across the solar system, unwavering, unbroken, as though an invisible hand had set the course long ago and left it to glide in silence. Each hour that passes, 3i/Atlas drifts deeper into our awareness and deeper into mystery. It is not the speed alone that unsettles us, not the trajectory, but the way it holds its calmness, like something that knows exactly where it is going. Every calculation confirms it. The orbit bends but does not falter. The body rotates but does not tumble. The glow increases but does not flicker. Stability, control, persistence. If this were merely frozen ice and fractured stone, would it not wobble? Would it not shatter? Would it not betray some weakness to the chaos of space? But instead, it flows, like a sentence written with perfect penmanship, a sentence that stretches for thousands of years, and we are only now beginning to read it. And the ellipses in its journey, the pauses between encounters, are as important as the encounters themselves. Venus, then pause, Mars, then pause, Jupiter, then pause, as though each world were a word in a longer message, a coded sequence, glimpsed only by those who notice the pattern. Coincidence is the simplest answer, but simplicity often hides deeper design. Telescopes watch it like eyes watching an eclipse, waiting for the moment when shadow overtakes light, waiting for revelation in the dimming, and in its passage, it eclipses certainty. For every answer it gives, it leaves 3 more questions. Why carbon dioxide so far from the sun? Why no dust, no debris, no trail of chaos? Why such precision in an object that should be ancient and weary? Each question is an eclipse, covering what we thought we knew, forcing us to sit in the darkness for a moment before new light breaks through. Astronomers speak carefully, in whispers, almost their words softened by uncertainty. Some say it is natural, some say engineered, most say we cannot know, yet all agree on one point: we are witnessing something that almost never happens. To see an interstellar traveler is rare. To see one so strange is rarer still. It is as though a curtain has parted for only a moment, and behind it lies a stage far grander than we imagined. And here, in this moment of eclipse, the human mind begins to stretch. We imagine machines wrapped in rock, probes disguised as comets, messages traveling slower than light, but faster than time itself. We imagine civilizations so ancient that they no longer announce themselves with signals or fleets, but with subtler instruments, quiet instruments, instruments that wait millennia to glide past a young, noisy species like ours. And the most unsettling thought of all is that maybe we were never the audience. Maybe the path of 3i/Atlas was not plotted for us, but we happened to rise at the right time to see it. Like a shadow passing over the Earth during a solar eclipse, we stand beneath it by chance, but chance feels like destiny when you are caught in its path. And still, it moves, silent, indifferent, unhurried, eclipsing the stars behind it as it goes, leaving us to wonder if we have just glimpsed the outline of something far greater than we can yet understand. The further it drifts, the more the silence grows, and yet the more it speaks. Not in sound, not in signal, but in presence. Its path is language, its glow is syntax, its pauses between planets are punctuation. We are reading a story written not in ink, but in motion, written across a canvas of stars. Every night, astronomers track it, frame by frame, a dot against the infinite. And every night, it obeys the mathematics too perfectly, not too close, not too far, always aligned. The precision is breathtaking, as if randomness has been outlawed, as if chaos itself were forbidden in its wake. But nature is rarely so kind. Rocks crack, comets tumble, dust scatters, yet 3I/Atlas glides, smooth, balanced, unyielding. It rotates, but not frantically. It releases gas, but not chaotically. It shines, but not wildly. Every gesture is restrained, measured, deliberate. The ellipses in its movement echo in our minds. Venus, pause. Mars, pause. Jupiter, pause. Earth, perhaps, not close enough to touch, but close enough to see. Like a surveyor marking points on a map, it passes each world in turn. Was this path chosen, or is it coincidence dressed in meaning? The question eclipses certainty again and again. Consider the possibility that it was launched not last year, not last century, but millions of years ago. A messenger set adrift when our ancestors were nothing more than quiet mammals in the shadows of giants. A probe cast into eternity, so that one day somewhere it would pass by something worth noticing, something noisy, something alive, something like us. And we noticed. Barely. A flicker caught in the vigilance of machines, a tiny signal extracted from the noise of the sky. Had it been smaller, dimmer, quieter, we might never have seen it. How many others have slipped past unseen? How many more shadows have crossed our system without acknowledgement, leaving only the faintest of traces? Perhaps this one is different because it wanted to be different. Perhaps it allowed itself to glow, allowed carbon dioxide to escape so that we might catch the trail. Like a star dimming in an eclipse, it showed just enough to be noticed, but not enough to be revealed. And so we wait, we watch, we speculate. We tell ourselves stories to fill the darkness, that it is natural, that it is a relic, that it is a machine. Each possibility is a mirror, reflecting not the truth of the object, but the truth of our own imagination. And through it all, the visitor continues. Quiet, calm, eclipsing certainty with wonder, replacing knowledge with mystery, passing through our skies like a thought too large for words. It drifts onward, the black ocean of space parting before it, closing behind it, leaving no trace but the disturbance of our thoughts. The more we watch, the more it resembles a kind of paradox, a contradiction dressed as a traveller. It is ancient, yet timely, silent, yet speaking, natural, yet suspicious. Every detail pulls us deeper into speculation, deeper into uncertainty, deeper into wonder. The ellipses in its journey stretch long, like pauses in a conversation we do not understand. Each pause has weight. Each pause feels like intention. From one planet to the next, a rhythm unfolds, a cadence written in orbital mechanics, a tempo older than language. Venus, pause. Mars, pause. Jupiter. The sequence is not random. Randomness stumbles. It hesitates. It reveals its lack of design. But this feels like choreography. Picture it as a dancer on a cosmic stage, a figure whose steps are so slow that we can barely register them. Yet when seen over months, years, millennia, the pattern is undeniable. This is not chaos. This is motion that obeys something more than luck. It obeys either physics written in ways we do not yet comprehend or intention. And so, Humanity divides itself in interpretation. Some cling to the comfort of nature, to the belief that this is simply a comet born of chance, its peculiarities nothing more than quirks of chemistry and trajectory. Others whisper of artifice, of a design so subtle, so cloaked, that it would mimic nature until noticed, until the right species with the right instrument saw past the disguise. Why would something hide? The answer echoes in the dark forest hypothesis. Because silence is safety. Because in a universe filled with predators, the loud do not survive. And so, if one civilization sent probes, they would not arrive shining with lights or blaring with signals. They would arrive disguised, muted, cloaked as ice and rock. They would slip past sensors unnoticed, unless someone knew where to look, unless someone was meant to notice. Perhaps that is what is happening now. Perhaps we were meant to look. The object releases carbon dioxide, not water vapor, not organics, not dust. Carbon dioxide alone, steady, measured, consistent. Comets breathe erratically, gas bursts, jets spurt, fragments break, but not this one. This one exhales like a sleeper, slow, deliberate breaths, as if preserving itself, as if regulating its own systems. And the question rises again, what systems? What lies beneath the surface? Is the ice a shell? Is the glow camouflage? Is the entire form a container for something else entirely? Our instruments cannot pierce it. Our telescopes cannot resolve it clearly enough. All we see is the silhouette of mystery. Think of how we design our own machines. Satellites are wrapped in shielding. Spacecraft are coated in insulation. The outer layer is always the disguise, the protection, the skin. What if 3I/Atlas is built the same way, an inner structure hidden by an outer shroud, a probe hidden in a comet's body, an observer dressed as debris? Its slow spin reinforces the idea. Natural rocks tumble unpredictably. Their rotations wobble, but 3I/Atlas rotates evenly, calmly, like a gyroscope, like something balanced. Spin stabilization, we call it. A technique we ourselves use in satellites. A technique to conserve energy, to remain steady, to avoid waste. Could this be coincidence? Yes, but coincidence stacks upon coincidence until doubt cracks and wonder rushes in. The ellipses between discoveries grow. Each time astronomers release new data, the world pauses, inhales, waits for meaning. But meaning remains elusive. It's as though the object gives us just enough to keep the story alive, just enough to keep our eyes on it, but never enough to solve the riddle. Like an eclipse, where the sun vanishes, yet the light around it dazzles. The truth hides, yet the mystery glows even brighter. Some propose it is ancient beyond reckoning, launched billions of years ago, older than Earth, older than our sun, sent across distances too vast for us to comprehend. If that is true, then whoever sent it may no longer exist. Civilizations rise and fall, species emerge and vanish, but artifacts endure. Machines drift long after their creators are dust. Perhaps 3I/Atlas is one such relic, a ghost of a people long dead, a message without a messenger, a record without a reader. Others suggest something more unsettling, that it is not a relic, but part of a network, that countless such objects drift unseen between stars, patient, silent, forming a web of observation across the galaxy, that each time a civilization rises to visibility, one passes by, records, reports. And if so, then this is not chance. This is schedule, a schedule older than history. Imagine being part of that schedule. Imagine our entire species catalogued like an entry in a cosmic archive. Imagine that long before we split the atom, long before we wrote language, long before we painted on stone walls, it was already determined that one day an object would pass by to take note, to measure our progress, to see what we had become. And what do we look like from that vantage point? A planet glowing with artificial lights. A world wrapped in radio waves. A species divided yet restless, reaching for the stars, yet struggling with itself. Perhaps that is what it sees. Perhaps that is what it was meant to see. The ellipses of thought stretch longer. What if it is not here for us at all? What if Earth is irrelevant? What if this path was plotted for reasons beyond our comprehension, reasons that have nothing to do with humanity? We may be mistaking proximity for significance. We may be centering ourselves in a story that does not belong to us. Perhaps it is scanning the sun itself. Perhaps it is listening to Jupiter's storms. Perhaps it is following a route set long before Earth even existed. But even then, the coincidence remains. To pass this close, to pass now, to be seen. It eclipses the boundary between imagination and science. It forces us to live in uncertainty, to breathe in mystery, and to confront the possibility that we are not the only ones who wonder. And still, it moves, slow, even, relentless. Each day it drifts farther from the inner planets. Each day the glow diminishes, just slightly. Each day it pulls the curtain tighter around itself. Soon it will pass beyond our reach. Soon it will become only memory, a dot of light that once was. And when it does, what then? Do we let it go? Do we consign it to the catalogue of anomalies? Or do we let it linger in the mind as something more, something that eclipsed our certainty for a moment and reminded us of how vast and how strange the universe can be? And even as it departs, the thought will remain that maybe, just maybe, someone is watching. Someone has always been watching, and we have only just noticed. It glides onward, deeper into shadow, deeper into silence, and the more it leaves behind, the larger it seems to grow in our imagination. We chase it with instruments, with mathematics, with questions, but it always drifts just beyond our reach, like a dream upon waking, clear for a moment, then dissolving into fog. And yet the impression remains. Something passed through here, something real, something that does not belong. The ellipses of its journey stretch wide, long silences between bursts of observation. Telescopes record, then wait, record, then wait, each pause heavy, as though the cosmos itself were inhaling. And in those pauses, humanity imagines. We fill the void with stories, with fears, with hopes. That is our way, to bridge uncertainty with narrative, to give shape to what cannot yet be explained. And so the stories multiply. Some whisper that 3I/Atlas is no more than ice and rock, sculpted by chance, shaped by gravity, nothing more than a relic of star formation. Others suggest it is a probe, a machine disguised as nature, watching quietly, reporting silently. Others still imagine it as a seed, a vessel carrying the code of another world, drifting until it finds fertile ground. Each interpretation says as much about us as it does about the object. Each eclipse of certainty reveals more about human imagination than cosmic truth. But imagination matters. Imagination is survival. Our ancestors once looked at shadows on cave walls and saw predators, spirits, gods. They invented stories to protect themselves, to prepare, to endure. Now we look into the sky and see a visitor. And again we tell stories, not to fill caves with firelight, but to fill minds with possibility. And perhaps in this act, we prepare ourselves once more. Look closely at its path. It approaches the sun, but not too near. It brushes the orbits of worlds, but never collides. It seems to follow a course designed to pass by without harm, a guest that refuses to disturb the host. This restraint is striking. Natural objects are indifferent, yes, but they are also reckless. They crash, they shatter, they burn. Yet 3I/Atlas glides with courtesy, a guest that knows its boundaries. Does that not feel intentional? Does that not feel like etiquette written into trajectory? And if so, then what does that etiquette mean? Respect? Distance? Observation without interference? Imagine a civilization so advanced that it no longer colonizes, no longer invades, no longer signals loudly. Instead, it watches, quietly, patiently, with curiosity, not conquest. A civilization of archivists. A library written not in books but in trajectories. Each probe a chapter, each path a sentence, each pass a quiet act of attention. But attention can be unsettling. To be observed is to feel judged. What are we showing here on Earth, to whatever eyes may be hidden within that object? A planet alive with light, but scarred by conflict. A species clever enough to split atoms, but reckless enough to poison its own atmosphere. A world capable of beauty beyond words, and yet trapped in cycles of destruction. If they are watching, what do they see? And what do they conclude? The ellipses stretch again. Silence between answers, silence between possibilities. We do not know, we cannot know, and so the imagination runs. Some imagine it is a warning, a quiet reminder that we are not alone, and that others have passed this way before, that civilizations rise and fall, and those who last are those who learn restraint. The probe in this reading is not a threat but a mirror, a reflection of what we might become if we survive long enough to travel without urgency. Others imagine it is a test, that the object is not neutral but evaluative, watching to see whether we notice it, whether we react, whether we are ready. If we ignore it, perhaps it leaves us alone. If we reach out, perhaps it answers, and if we lash out, perhaps it marks us as dangerous. In this story, silence is the exam, and our response is the grade. Still others imagine it is indifferent, a relic drifting past with no living hand behind it, no watching eye, no intention, a ghost probe, sent long ago, abandoned, still moving because physics allows it no choice. In this version, the meaning we seek is not in the object, but in ourselves. We are the ones who give it weight. We are the ones who shape its silence into story. The object is just an eclipse, a shadow that forces us to look at our own light. And in all these interpretations, something becomes clear. 3i/Atlas has changed us. Already, even without answers. Because now we must live with the possibility that the cosmos is not empty, that the dark is not silent, that someone somewhere may have once looked toward our star and chosen to send something this way. And so we continue to watch. With every night that passes, it grows fainter, smaller, slipping farther away. Soon it will be gone. But absence does not erase presence. Even when it leaves, the thought will remain. The thought that we were seen. The thought that we were noticed. The thought that we are not alone. And in that thought, something awakens. A kind of humility. A kind of awe. A reminder that we are young and the universe is old. That we are loud. And the universe is patient. That we are reckless. And the universe is enduring. And maybe, just maybe, that was the purpose all along. Not to deliver a message. Not to change the course of history, but to remind us that history is larger than ourselves, that time stretches wider than our lifespans, that silence can be full of meaning, that ellipses can speak as loudly as words. It moves still, across the black ocean, a shadow eclipsing stars, a question eclipsing certainty, a visitor eclipsing solitude, and we are left to wonder. It continues forward, a presence that is both near and impossibly distant, both plain and unreadable, both silent and yet echoing with meaning. Every hour that passes, every measurement, every observation deepens the puzzle instead of solving it. We ask for answers and receive only more questions. We reach for clarity, and the universe gives us mystery. That is the nature of things like 3i/Atlas. They resist simplicity. They refuse to settle neatly into the boxes we prepare for them. Think of how many times humanity has stared into the unknown and tried to explain it. The first fires in caves that danced with shadows, the eclipses of the sun that turned day into night, the wandering stars that became gods and omens. Again and again, our instinct has been to make meaning. And here again we find ourselves confronted with something strange, something rare, something that does not fit. And so we make stories. Some stories say it is natural. Some stories say it is built. Some stories say it is a message. None of them can be proven. All of them can be believed. Look at its motion. How cleanly it slides through the inner system. How calmly it arcs between planets. How unbroken its path seems to be. Natural rocks, natural comets, are rarely so composed. They fragment, they tumble, they burst unpredictably. Yet this visitor moves as though it has memorized the script of its journey, as though nothing will sway it, not even gravity itself. When it approached Venus, the data shifted. Telescopes caught changes in brightness, subtle reflections, patterns that were too steady to be coincidence. Venus, shrouded in its suffocating clouds, gave nothing away, but 3I/Atlas seemed to drink in that encounter and move on without hesitation. The pause was brief, but the pause felt intentional. A moment of alignment, then departure. Mars came next, and again the pattern repeated. Another pause, another alignment, another smooth continuation. Then Jupiter, vast and storm-wrapped, its magnetic field enormous, its gravity a great anchor in the solar system. Once again the visitor brushed close, and once again it seemed unchanged. Each encounter is a kind of eclipse, not of light but of knowledge. For a moment our instruments register something more, a flicker, a signal, a deviation. We lean forward, we expect revelation, but then darkness again. The data smooths, the anomaly vanishes. We are left with shadow where we hoped for illumination. Just like an eclipse of the sun, the moment dazzles us, but the light does not last. This pattern is almost cruel in its elegance. It reveals just enough to make us curious, but never enough to satisfy. It feeds imagination while denying certainty. It is the perfect riddle, the perfect silence. If this were artifice, if this were designed, could there be a more effective method of control to leave us forever questioning, forever doubting, forever divided? Some scientists say we are reaching too far, that we are filling gaps with fantasy, that we are projecting intelligence where there is none, and perhaps they are right. But even so, the fact remains that this object is not ordinary. The ratios of gases released, the steadiness of rotation, the improbable trajectory, these are not fantasies, these are facts, and facts, when strange enough, are enough to stir the imagination without apology. Consider the possibility that this is a long relay in an ancient chain, that long before our species rose from the grasslands, another civilization scattered its instruments like seeds across the galaxy, letting them drift on patient arcs, waiting for chance alignments with new worlds, new intelligences, a civilization that knew it could not live forever, but knew that its artifacts could, a civilization that placed its trust not in permanence of flesh, but in endurance of machines. And now, one of those machines has brushed against us. What do we do with that? Do we call it coincidence? Do we call it miracle? Do we call it nothing at all? Each choice says something about who we are. Each interpretation is a reflection of our own state of mind. To the cautious, it is natural. To the hopeful, it is alien. To the fearful, it is a threat. To the poet, it is a story. To the scientist, it is data. To all of us, it is a mystery that does not release its grip. And the longer it drifts, the deeper the ellipses stretch. Long silences between measurements. Long silences between insights. Long silences between conclusions. It teaches us patience without asking. It forces us into stillness. In the absence of certainty, we learn to live with wonder. In the absence of answers, we learn to sit with questions. This may be the most profound gift the object brings, not knowledge, but humility. Imagine civilizations older than ours watching the same passage. Imagine them seeing the same thing we see now, thousands of years ago when it passed by their worlds, each of them asking the same questions, each of them speculating in their own languages, each of them seeing themselves reflected in its silence. And perhaps that is the true design, not to deliver information, but to create imagination, not to speak, but to echo. We do not know how long we will see it. We do not know when it will fade beyond our reach, but for now, it remains. A moving eclipse across our understanding, a shadow that forces us to see the brightness around it more clearly. And as long as it moves, so too does our curiosity. It drifts further, past the reach of easy observation, into distances where even the strongest instruments must strain, and yet the fascination only grows. The less we see, the more we imagine. The dimmer it becomes, the brighter it burns in the mind. That is the paradox of things like this. The more it hides, the more it reveals, the more silent it is, the louder it echoes through thought. What are we really seeing when we watch 3I/Atlas? A body of ice and dust? A relic of interstellar birth? Or the surface disguise of something far older, far stranger, far more deliberate? Every possibility seems to eclipse the others. One moment natural, the next artificial, the next unknowable, each explanation eclipsing certainty, forcing us back into mystery. Look at its history. This object began its journey long before our world was ready to receive it. When it crossed the outer edge of the solar system, 8,000 years ago, humanity was still beginning to shape civilization. The first farms were spreading, the first villages forming, the first stories being written into clay, and overhead, unnoticed, this traveler slipped into our skies, invisible, then patient beyond measure. What does it mean that now, after millennia of waiting, it passes close enough for us to see? Is it coincidence or convergence? The path it follows still unnerves astronomers. Too precise, too aligned, too fortunate in its encounters. Natural orbits rarely behave with such symmetry, yet 3I/Atlas threads between planets with a kind of grace, not reckless, not hesitant, but assured, like a hand had drawn its line across the chart of our solar system long ago, and now the object is only following instructions. And the breathing of carbon dioxide continues. Not chaotic outbursts like comets we know, but steady, measured, a whisper rather than a cry, as though it is releasing just enough to remain alive, just enough to be visible, just enough to signal without signaling. If it is alive, it is a strange life. If it is a machine, it is a subtle machine. If it is natural, it is a natural wonder. Each interpretation collapses under the weight of its own ellipses. We explain, then pause. We reason, then pause. We doubt, then pause. Always the pauses, stretching longer, filled not with answers but with questions. Each eclipse of certainty becomes an invitation to see beyond ourselves, to imagine larger scales of time, larger designs of purpose. Some scientists speak of probabilities. They calculate the odds of interstellar debris drifting into our system. They calculate the odds of gas release at strange distances from the sun. They calculate the odds of alignment with multiple planets. Each number offers an explanation, but numbers cannot eclipse imagination. Numbers cannot erase the feeling that this object is not just what it seems, because even when data says natural, the heart whispers designed. And the heart has reasons the data cannot always measure. The heart recognizes patterns where logic resists them. The heart reads intention in silence, meaning in shadow. Perhaps this is folly, or perhaps this is the beginning of something more. Imagine civilizations scattered across the galaxy, each one rising, building, reaching, and each one asking the same question we ask now: are we alone? Imagine some of them launching instruments into the void, not to conquer, not to colonize, but to watch. Instruments disguised as comets, instruments designed to endure forever, instruments like 3I/Atlas. What if the galaxy is seeded with them, a network of silent watchers, drifting endlessly, recording endlessly, passing from system to system? What if we are not the first to be observed, and not the last? This possibility changes how we see ourselves. It suggests that Earth is not a secret, that our noise has already been catalogued, that our light has already been measured, that we are already known. And if we are known, then what is left to fear? Perhaps we are being studied gently. Perhaps we are being weighed patiently. Perhaps we are simply one entry among countless others, a chapter in a book we did not know was being written. But another possibility presses against thought. What if it is not passive? What if it is not simply observing? What if there is action hidden within silence? What if the measurements it makes lead not to records, but to decisions? Decisions we are not aware of, decisions we cannot influence. What if its pauses, its ellipses, are not just gaps in knowledge but deliberations? Each planet it passes, another data point, each world measured, another calculation, and somewhere far away the information it gathers could be sent or stored or judged. This thought brings unease, because to be judged implies criteria, and criteria imply standards, and standards imply consequences. What if this is not just observation, but evaluation? And what if we are failing the test? Look at Earth as it would appear to an outside observer, a world glowing with technology, but also burning with conflict, a planet alive with beauty, but scarred with pollution, a species capable of reaching the stars, but still trapped in struggles with itself. If 3I/Atlas is measuring potential, what does it see in us? Promise? Danger? Both? The ellipses stretch longer. We cannot know. We can only wonder. And in that wondering, we find reflection. We are forced to ask, what story are we writing about ourselves? If someone else is watching, what narrative do we give them to record? And perhaps that is the true purpose of this visitor, to remind us that we are not just isolated, not just unobserved, not just alone in the dark. Perhaps the presence of a watcher, real or imagined, is enough to change us, to make us more careful, to make us more curious, to make us more humble, to remind us that the universe is older, larger, stranger than we admit, and that our place within it is fragile, temporary, precious. It moves still, no rush, no deviation, no signal, only silence, only distance, only mystery. And in that mystery an entire species pauses and listens. It advances through the void, not hurried, not hesitant, steady, deliberate, like the pendulum of a clock, too vast for us to comprehend. Each moment stretches into the next. Each pause lengthens. Each ellipse in its motion becomes another eclipse of certainty. Humanity watches. Humanity wonders. Humanity waits. The silence around it is as meaningful as the faint signals it gives. Nothing transmits. Nothing blinks. Nothing betrays technology in the form we expect. But what if that is the point? What if the silence is the transmission? A message that does not need radio waves, does not need lasers, does not need to be decoded. A message written in patience. A message written in restraint. Patience. That is what unsettles us most. Our machines rush, they burn, they wear themselves down in decades. Our telescopes cry out for more data immediately. Our minds seek conclusions instantly. But this visitor, it has taken thousands of years to arrive here, and it does not break its rhythm. It does not indulge urgency. It simply glides, slowly, predictably, inevitably. When Venus shone beneath it, the reflection shifted, brightness dipped and rose again, as though the object itself had adjusted to the planet's glow, then silence again. When Mars passed near, its orbit curved just slightly, not enough to be called deviation, but enough to suggest interaction. Then silence again. Jupiter came, with its vast pull, and once again something almost imperceptible, A flicker of data that screamed anomaly, then silence again. The pattern repeats: anomaly, pause, anomaly, pause. Each one an eclipse of certainty. Each one another ellipsis we cannot close. Imagine a machine built for this, built not to rush, not to shout, but to breathe across centuries. A machine that observes without announcing, records without interfering. Would we even recognize it as a machine, or would we mistake it for a rock, a comet, a fragment of chance? Perhaps that is the cleverest disguise of all, not to hide as something exotic, but to hide as something ordinary. If so, then 3I/Atlas is genius in its simplicity, because the universe is full of rocks, full of debris, full of icy wanderers. To hide among them is to become invisible, unless the watchers are ready to see through the disguise. Unless the watchers have already reached the stage where imagination fills the gaps of data, where ellipses become questions instead of emptiness. Perhaps that is the test. Not whether we can intercept, not whether we can capture, but whether we can notice, whether we can sit with mystery without dismissing it. And what if the test has been passed? What if, simply by noticing, simply by asking, we have joined a conversation older than Earth itself, a conversation spoken not in words but in silences, not in transmissions but in trajectories, a conversation where the punctuation is not periods or commas but ellipses that stretch across centuries. Think of the civilizations that may have come before, civilizations that launched watchers like this one, probes dressed as comets, to wander between stars, civilizations that may no longer exist, their bodies gone, their cities gone, their languages erased, but their artifacts still adrift, still observing, still recording, still echoing across the galaxy like fossils of thought. 3I/Atlas could be one of them, a fossil of intelligence, a relic of patience. And if it is, then we are witnessing history not written by us. We are reading a chapter not meant for our eyes, but found anyway, and in that discovery is awe, and unease, and humility. But another possibility lingers. What if it is not a relic but a seed? What if it does not simply record but plant ideas, plant possibilities, plant change? Seeds do not speak when they are sown. They wait, they rest, they remain dormant until the soil is ready. What if Earth is the soil? What if humanity is the soil? What if 3I/Atlas is simply waiting for us to grow into what it expects? The ellipses stretch longer. We pause again. We look inward. If someone is watching, what do we show them? Do we show them war or peace? Do we show them greed or generosity? Do we show them destruction or creation? Each choice is a signal. Each action is a transmission. Each moment of our history is part of the message we cannot hide. Perhaps that is why the object says nothing, because it does not need to. Because we are already speaking through our cities, through our machines, through our signals, through our behavior. It watches because we are already talking. And so we continue, living, building, struggling, wondering, under the gaze of something silent, something ancient, something beyond us. We do not know what it is. We do not know what it wants, but we know it is there. And that knowledge changes everything. It presses onward, deeper into the system, deeper into our awareness, deeper into the theater of imagination, where silence becomes language. We chase it with instruments, with algorithms, with minds restless for clarity, and still it denies us. The more we know, the less we understand. The more data we gather, the more questions expand. Every spectrum analyzed, every rotation timed, every outgassing measured, all of it leads not to conclusion, but to a widening of mystery. The ellipses are everywhere, not only in its pauses, but in ours. Scientists present graphs. Pause, speculate, pause, withdraw. Observers record images. Pause, compare, pause, doubt. Even casual stargazers, hearing of it, look upward and feel the same rhythm. See, pause, wonder, pause. A chain of ellipses that binds us together in uncertainty. Consider its path again. Hyperbolic, not bound, not captured, not ours. It came from outside. It will return to outside. It will return to outside, and yet in the brief moment of its presence, it threads a line through our system that feels more like handwriting than accident. Each planet approached, not collided with, not missed by vast margins, but brushed, skimmed, acknowledged. Venus first, then Mars, then Jupiter. Each one like syllables in a sentence, each one like stages in a ritual. It feels less like drifting and more like reciting. And what if it is reciting? What if this is not chance but liturgy? A machine carrying out instructions written in a language we do not know, but a language nonetheless. A sequence of actions, not chosen freely but followed faithfully. Imagine a probe designed to always pass near inner planets of any system it enters, to map atmospheres, to measure magnetic fields, to gather radio signatures. Its creators may be gone. Its purpose may be lost, but the ritual continues. Because the machine does not forget, the machine obeys. This thought leads to another, that perhaps it is not just one machine. Perhaps there are many. Perhaps 3I/Atlas is one of thousands, scattered like pollen across the galaxy, each drifting into new systems, each recording, each departing. A galaxy seeded with watchers, each one indistinguishable from debris until it draws close enough to reveal its difference. If so, then our sighting is not unique. We are simply the latest in a line of civilizations to notice, to wonder, to ask, each one writing its own stories, each one filling ellipses with its own fears, its own hopes, its own reflections. But what becomes of those reflections? Do they vanish with the civilizations themselves? Or do they ripple outward, changing the course of history in small but lasting ways? Imagine an ancient world, long vanished, that once looked up and saw its own version of 3I/Atlas. Perhaps they too speculated. Perhaps they too changed their behavior, subtly under the weight of being watched. Perhaps their art shifted, their science accelerated, their politics calmed or intensified. And maybe, in ways we cannot measure, the visitor altered their destiny, not by action, not by contact, but by presence alone. That is its power, not to interfere but to unsettle, not to direct but to reflect, not to act but to make us act differently. The power of observation is profound. Even in human society, we behave differently when watched. We straighten, we adjust, we conform. What then of a whole planet watched by something that may not even be alive but still carries the aura of judgment? We begin to think not only of ourselves, but of what we look like to others. We begin to frame our choices in cosmic terms, and that may be the most radical shift of all. Some will deny, some will dismiss. That too is part of the process. Every encounter with the unknown divides response. But division is itself a kind of evolution. In arguing, in doubting, in debating, we sharpen our ideas, we refine our vision, we become clearer, even in disagreement. The visitor forces us to grow, not by teaching, but by forcing us to confront the limits of what we know. And always, always, there are the pauses, the gaps in data, the ellipses between observations, the eclipses of certainty that follow each new discovery. We are left staring into shadow, waiting for the light to return. But maybe the shadow itself is the lesson. Maybe the silence is what we were meant to hear all along. Because silence is not empty. Silence is full of echoes. Silence is full of possibility. Silence is the canvas upon which imagination paints. And right now, the silence around 3I/Atlas is painting us into the cosmos in ways we have not been painted before. It continues. It does not falter, it does not explain, it does not end. It moves without hesitation, without flourish, without the chaos we expect from drifting debris. Its path is smooth, its pace unwavering, its silence deliberate. In the quiet of deep space, it performs a kind of slow ballet, a choreography, written not in seconds or minutes, but in millennia. To us, each moment feels stretched. To it, perhaps each moment is nothing at all. The ellipses deepen in its wake. Each pause between discoveries is longer than the last. Each silence more charged than sound could ever be. Scientists present their data, hesitation follows, conclusions trail off. They cannot close the thought, they cannot finish the sentence, they cannot place the final period. Instead, everything ends in suspension, in ellipses, because nothing is finished. Its composition continues to disturb expectations. The ratios of carbon dioxide to water ice are unnatural by cometry standards, at least unnatural by what we know. 8 parts carbon dioxide to 1 part water, an imbalance so striking, so consistent, that it feels less like accident and more like recipe. If this is natural, then nature has surprised us again, and yet how often can surprise layer itself upon surprise before the line between accident and artifice blurs? And then there is the way it began to glow too early, far too early, outgassing at distances where the sun's heat should not reach. That single fact alone casts a long shadow. A comet should slumber in that cold. A comet should wait. But this one did not wait. This one woke early. Why? To be seen, to be measured, to signal, or simply because it is built differently. Every explanation collapses into another question. The more we answer, the more space opens around the answer, as though each truth is only a shadow cast by something larger, an eclipse of knowledge, where the outline of what we do not know is revealed only when light is blocked. And so, paradoxically, the more we observe, the less we feel we understand. Think about the possibility of design. Imagine you wanted to study young civilizations. Imagine you wanted to see their progress, their behavior, their habits. Would you arrive in ships with noise and spectacle? Or would you send objects like this, hidden among the countless other rocks of space, indistinguishable until they chose not to be? Imagine scattering thousands of them, tens of thousands across the galaxy, each one drifting patiently, each one passing through system after system, waiting for species like ours to notice. A network of silent observers, never aging, never announcing, always watching. If this is such a network, then what does it mean for us? That we are not only observed now, but have always been observed, that our first fires were seen, that our first cities were seen, that our wars, our empires, our revolutions, our signals into the sky, all were catalogued by silent instruments passing in the dark, that humanity has never truly been alone, only unaware. The thought is staggering and humbling and terrifying, because to be observed is to be judged, and to be judged implies criteria. What do we look like under this lens? A species both creative and destructive. A world radiant with beauty yet fractured with violence. A civilization reaching for the stars, yet still tangled in the gravity of its own instincts. What do we look like to something so patient, so enduring, so far beyond us? The ellipses stretch. We cannot know, but we can imagine. And in imagination is reflection. Already 3i/Atlas changes us. Not by touching, not by speaking, not by interfering, but by existing. By simply being present, it forces us to look at ourselves differently, to frame our actions not only for ourselves, but for the possibility of another eye. An unseen witness changes everything. It is like standing in a room, thinking you are alone, and then realizing someone has been watching quietly in the corner. Your behavior changes, your awareness sharpens, you become more deliberate, and now Earth itself feels like that room. Humanity feels like that person. And 3i/Atlas. It may be the watcher in the corner. Or perhaps it is not watching us at all. Perhaps we are merely incidental. Perhaps its purpose lies elsewhere entirely, to measure suns, not planets, to study gravity wells, not civilizations, to map the galaxy, not its inhabitants. And yet, even if that were so, the timing unsettles us. That it should arrive now, in the age of telescopes and satellites and restless curiosity, that it should become visible just as we are capable of asking questions large enough to receive it, the odds stretch too thin to ignore. And so we return again to coincidence, and how fragile coincidence feels under the weight of repetition. One oddity may be chance, two may be curiosity, but three, four, five. How many before chance collapses? How many before we admit pattern? How many before we whisper design? It presses onward, and we cannot follow. Our fastest machines cannot match it. Our brightest eyes cannot pierce it. It remains beyond touch, beyond certainty, beyond capture. And maybe that too is intentional. Maybe the point is not to touch. Maybe the point is to wonder. And so we wonder. It continues through the solar system, unbroken, untouched, unstoppable. Its path is not dramatic, not violent, not chaotic. Instead, it is steady, measured, precise. And that precision unsettles us more than chaos ever could. Because chaos we understand. Chaos is nature's language. Precision, prolonged, perfect precision, is something else. Precision whispers of intention. Precision hints at control. Precision feels like design. Every time the telescopes catch it, we lean closer. Each glimpse becomes a mirror. It tells us something about itself. But more importantly, it tells us something about us, about our hunger for answers, about our discomfort with silence, about our need to fill every pause with meaning. The ellipses it leaves in the data are not voids. They are prompts. Prompts that invite imagination to spill into the gap. Prompts that remind us that uncertainty is not failure, but possibility. Consider the way it resists decay. Natural comets fragment. They leave trails of debris, broken pieces pulled apart by solar wind and gravity. But 3I/Atlas holds together. No disintegration, no weakness, no fracture. It breathes carbon dioxide. Yes, but evenly, steadily, predictably. Not in violent bursts like the comets we know, but in slow exhalations, as if it were alive, as if it were conserving itself, as if it were designed to last. And its symmetry remains. It spins but does not tumble. It glides but does not stumble. This is not the drunken stagger of a stone. This is the balance of a crafted thing. And if it is crafted, then it is ancient, older than us, older than Earth, perhaps older than our sun. That thought alone pulls the breath from the chest. To think of something built before our world existed, still functioning, still moving, still obeying its instructions. It stretches time itself into an ellipse too long for us to comprehend. The silence it keeps is as deliberate as its motion. No signals, no radio bursts, no attempt to announce itself. And yet is silence not its own announcement? Silence that says, I do not need to shout. Silence that says, I will not disturb. Silence that says, I am here and that is enough. In the dark forest of the galaxy, perhaps silence is the only safe language. And if so, then 3I/Atlas speaks it fluently. But silence does not erase effect. Even now, its presence reshapes our imagination. Writers, thinkers, dreamers, all begin to weave it into their work. In art, it becomes symbol. In philosophy, it becomes question. In science, it becomes anomaly. Already it has eclipsed itself as an object and become something more, an idea, and ideas, unlike objects, do not fade with distance. They linger, they grow, they evolve. What if it is part of a chain, not the only one, but one of many? Imagine hundreds, thousands of such probes, drifting between stars, each one disguised, each one silent, each one enduring a galactic nervous system, a slow communication that does not use light or sound, but patience. If so, then 3i/Atlas is not here by chance. It is here because the system requires it, because the schedule demands it, because it was always going to arrive. And then the question shifts. Not why is it here, but why now? Why at this stage of our civilization? Why in the age of satellites? But before the age of interstellar travel? Why at the precise moment when our species has become visible, noisy, detectable? Perhaps because this is the only moment when it could matter, 1,000 years earlier, and we would not have noticed. 1,000 years later, and we may have been too advanced, too jaded, too distracted. But now we are perfectly balanced between innocence and awareness, perfectly placed to be shaken by wonder, perfectly ready to be reminded that we are not alone. Some will say it is nothing but rock. Some will insist it is ice, gas, gravity. And they may be right. But the truth is this: even if it is nothing more than rock, it has already become more, because meaning does not live in the object alone. Meaning lives in us, and we have given it meaning. We have allowed it to change our story, and in that sense it has succeeded. Whether by design or by accident, it has become more than itself. And so it continues, silent, patient, relentless. While we on Earth pause, speculate, dream, the ellipses stretch across the night sky, and in those ellipses humanity sees itself reflected. It advances further, the distance growing, yet the fascination intensifying each day, carrying it away from the reach of our clearest instruments, yet pulling us deeper into speculation. Its presence is paradoxical. The less we see, the more we imagine, the more it slips into shadow, the more it shines in our thoughts. It is leaving us physically, but embedding itself into our story. The ellipses continue to mark its rhythm. Data collected, pause, analyzed, pause, doubted, pause. No clear answers, only fragments that refuse to settle. And in those fragments the shape of mystery grows. Some call it a mirror, some call it a machine, some call it nothing more than a comet. But whatever the label, it carries weight far greater than its mass. It carries the weight of possibility. Imagine it now, far beyond Mars, far beyond the reach of casual telescopes, still glowing faintly, still exhaling, still holding its silence. Imagine the way its path bends outward, away from the sun, outward into the deep, hyperbolic, forever leaving, forever slipping away. This is no visitor that will circle back, no neighbor that will stay. This is a one-time passage, a crossing, a glimpse, and then absence. The brevity of that encounter makes it sharper, because we know that soon it will be gone, and what is rare becomes precious. Think about the civilizations that might have sent it. If it is artificial, they may be gone, long extinct, their cities dust, their oceans dried, their skies collapsed, and yet their artifact continues, still moving, still functioning, still carrying out its mission. Perhaps it carries within it data so old, so ancient, that no one remains to receive it. Perhaps it is not a messenger at all, but a fossil, the remains of intelligence, a relic of thought. Or perhaps they still exist. Perhaps, far away, they are still listening. Perhaps every faint release of gas, every slow rotation, every precise alignment with planets is still transmitted, still catalogued, still studied. We would never know. The link, if it exists, is invisible, silent, secure. But silence does not mean absence. Silence may be the loudest statement of all. The ellipses stretch further. The distance grows. The pauses between observations become longer, heavier, more uncertain, but still we hold our eyes on it. Still we calculate. Still we wonder. Because once something like this enters the story of a species, it never leaves. Even when the object itself is gone, the idea remains, the possibility remains, the shadow remains. And that shadow is vast. because to acknowledge it is to acknowledge that we are not alone, that intelligence may not be unique to us, that patience, endurance, silence, restraint, these too are marks of intelligence as much as fire or language or machines, and maybe that is the lesson of 3I/Atlas. That intelligence does not always shout, that sometimes it waits, sometimes it hides, sometimes it passes silently, leaving only wonder behind. We do not know what it is. We do not know why it came. We do not know what it means. But we know it has changed us. We know it has forced us to widen our vision. We know it has reminded us that the universe is deeper, stranger, older than we can imagine. And in that reminder, something awakens within us. Not fear, not certainty, but awe, and awe, perhaps, is the truest form of contact. It is still moving, further from the warmth of the sun, further into the cold where only the patient survive, further into the dark where silence rules. And yet, even as it drifts away, it does not feel like departure. It feels like continuation, as though its story is not ending, but merely shifting to another stage. To us, the stage is distance. To it, perhaps the stage is eternity. Every measurement we take becomes slower, now weaker, fainter. The instruments strain, the signals blur, the margin of error grows, but the mystery does not weaken. It sharpens, because uncertainty is fertile ground for imagination, and imagination thrives in shadow. We fill the gaps with stories. We turn the silence into language. We let the ellipses guide us into questions too vast for answers. Why carbon dioxide? Why so early? Why so steady? These questions remain unanswered, each one an eclipse covering the familiar, each one leaving us staring into a corona of the unknown. The science insists on caution, the math insists on natural explanation, but the human spirit insists on more. And so we wonder if beneath the ice lies structure, if beneath the glow lies design, if beneath the silence lies intention. The idea of a probe endures. The idea of disguise endures. After all, what better form could a machine take than that of a comet? Unnoticed, unremarkable, yet enduring, hidden among billions of others, yet moving with quiet difference. The disguise is perfect, too perfect, and perfection itself becomes suspicious. Think about patience. Our machines last decades at best, our empires centuries, our species mere millennia, but this object may have traveled for millions, even billions of years, outlasting stars, outlasting civilizations, outlasting time itself as we measure it. If it is artificial, then it embodies a patience we can scarcely comprehend, patience not of a moment, but of eternity. And patience is a form of intelligence. To wait without rushing, to observe without acting, to endure without announcing, that is not weakness, that is strength, a strength we rarely practice, a strength we barely understand. Perhaps that is why this visitor unsettles us so deeply, because it shows us a reflection of something we lack. The ellipses multiply. They are in its motion, they are in our thoughts, they are in the gaps between what we know and what we long to know. Each one hangs, unresolved, unfinished. Yet in those unfinished spaces lies beauty, the beauty of questions too large to close, the beauty of mysteries too vast to solve. And so we find ourselves not only studying the object, but studying ourselves. What does it mean to be watched? What does it mean to be measured? What does it mean to be seen, not by each other, but by something beyond? It changes how we think. It changes how we dream. It changes how we imagine the future. Because once you believe you might not be alone, everything shifts. Every decision, every ambition, every fear takes on a different weight. Perhaps that is the true effect of 3I/Atlas, not its data, not its composition, not even its presence, but its consequence, the way it bends our story, the way it changes our sense of scale, the way it forces us to look not only outward, but inward. And as it moves beyond reach, the lesson remains. That silence is not emptiness. That absence is not nothing. That wonder is not weakness. That patience may be the greatest strength of all. It drifts farther still, beyond the brightness of Mars, beyond the pull of Jupiter, into the deeper dark where sunlight thins and shadows reign. To us, the distance is immense. To it, the distance is nothing. To us, its time is fleeting. To it, time may be irrelevant. It is a reminder that scale itself is relative, that patience is measured not in minutes or years but in aeons. The ellipses mark the way we follow it. Data collected, pause. Trajectory confirmed, pause. Brightness fading, pause. Each pause heavier than the last, each pause holding more silence than sound ever could. The further it goes, the less we see. The less we see, the more we imagine. The less we know, the more we wonder. And wonder itself becomes the substance of this encounter. Look again at its nature. A body rich in carbon dioxide, a coma formed too far from the sun, a rotation steady beyond expectation. It resists the patterns of chaos. It resists the language of chance. It resists being ordinary, even if natural. It is an extraordinary natural, even if random. It is a profound randomness. The ordinary does not linger in thought this way. The ordinary does not eclipse certainty this way. The ordinary does not bend imagination this way. And so we circle again to the thought of disguise. If you were an ancient civilization, patient beyond reckoning, subtle beyond arrogance, would you not send watchers like this? Not golden ships of spectacle, not blazing signals across the stars, but stones that hide machines, machines that look like stones. Perfect camouflage in a galaxy littered with debris, a camouflage so flawless that only those who have learned to ask questions would even notice. Perhaps that is the true test. To see the anomaly, to notice the difference, to sit in the silence and still recognize that silence is not absence. If so, then humanity has passed the threshold. We have seen, we have wondered, we have asked, and in asking, we have joined a conversation older than ourselves. A conversation spoken not in words, not in light, but in ellipses stretched across centuries. But then another possibility whispers through the dark. What if this is not disguise, but relic, not a probe watching us, but a fossil drifting endlessly, built by a species long gone, long forgotten, long erased by time, their cities fallen, their oceans emptied, their skies broken, and yet their artifact endures, a survivor of extinction, a fragment of thought still moving, still functioning, still keeping to its path while its makers are dust. If that is true, then we are not only watched, we are haunted, haunted by the memory of another intelligence, haunted by the proof that civilizations can vanish, but artifacts endure. And that haunting carries a lesson. If they could vanish, so could we. If they could fall silent, so could Earth. The visitor becomes not only mystery, but warning. A shadow cast into our future, reminding us that endurance is not guaranteed, that survival is not automatic, that patience is not the same as permanence. Yet another interpretation persists, that it is not observer, not relic, but seed, a carrier of potential, a fragment meant to fall into worlds, to plant itself, to awaken life. Some call this panspermia, some call it speculation, but the idea is simple, that life is not confined but shared, that the galaxy is not silent but fertile, that stones can carry not only machines but beginnings. If that is true, then 3I/Atlas is not only watcher, not only fossil, but gardener, a gardener of worlds, scattering seeds across the dark, waiting for some to take root. And in every version, observer, relic, seed, the effect on us is the same. It stretches our imagination. It bends our perspective. It forces us to think not only of what is, but of what might be. It eclipses the certainty of the ordinary and replaces it with the possibility of the extraordinary. The ellipses grow heavier now. The gaps in data widen. The silence thickens. Each day the visitor grows fainter. Soon it will be beyond our reach. Soon it will vanish into the catalogue of memory, into the ledger of anomalies that were seen but never solved. And yet its absence will not erase it, because it is no longer only an object. It is a story, a thought, a mirror, and mirrors once seen cannot be unseen. And so humanity carries it forward. In science, in art, in philosophy, in wonder. The visitor has already done its work. Whether by design or by accident, it has reshaped us. It has made us look outward with new eyes. It has made us look inward with new humility. It has reminded us that we are not the measure of all things, that the universe is older, larger, and stranger than we can bear to know. And in that reminder lies its true gift, not knowledge, not certainty, not answers, but awe. And awe is enough. It moves beyond the places we can easily watch, into the stretches where light is faint and shadows are deep, into the regions where our instruments must strain and our patience must lengthen. The further it goes, the more it reveals not by what it shows us, but by what it withholds. Silence becomes signal, distance becomes presence, absence becomes meaning. The ellipses in our study mirror the ellipses in its journey. Each observation ends not with clarity but with hesitation. Each paper written on it ends not with conclusion but with suggestion. Each discussion among scientists ends not with certainty but with doubt. This is not failure. This is the rhythm of discovery. This is the cadence of the unknown. Look at the records. Its brightness did not behave like the brightness of ordinary comets, too smooth, too steady. Comets flare, sputter, flicker, but 3I/ Atlas glowed as though controlled, as though managed, as though it knew how much to reveal and how much to conceal. That balance is uncanny. That balance is unnatural. Or if natural, then it is a nature we have not yet understood. And its rotation, perfectly stable, not the tumbling of a broken stone, not the wobble of an irregular fragment, but the even spin of something balanced, something intentional, something designed to endure. Spin stabilization is what we use in our own satellites. To see it in an interstellar object is to feel suspicion rising in the mind, suspicion that whispers of artifice. Imagine it not as a rock, but as a vessel wrapped in disguise. Its outer shell rough, icy, ancient, its inner structure deliberate, mechanical, enduring. A vessel that has travelled not for decades, not for centuries, but for epochs. A vessel that carries knowledge across gulfs so vast that we struggle even to name them. A vessel that has seen suns flare and die, planets form and shatter, civilizations rise and vanish. And now it passes us, quietly, briefly, inevitably. What if this is not chance? What if it was always meant to be here now while we are able to see it? 8,000 years ago it crossed into the solar system. 8,000 years ago, when our ancestors were just beginning to till the earth, to build villages, to raise their first monuments. And yet it arrives here near us only now, when our telescopes are sharp enough, our machines sensitive enough, our curiosity awake enough to notice. Is that coincidence or convergence? And if convergence, then what does it mean? Was it waiting for us? Was it timed for us? Was it set on a path that would guarantee encounter with a civilization just as it became visible? The odds are small. The odds are almost absurd. And yet here it is. Here we are. Here is the meeting of silence and attention. The ellipses of time are staggering. Think of what it means for a machine to travel for millennia, to hold its course against gravity, against collisions, against cosmic rays, against the slow erosion of eternity. What material could endure that long? What design could last that long? What purpose could justify that long? If it is artificial, then it is not only advanced, it is patient, more patient than anything we know. Patience itself becomes its signal. We live fast, burn fast, exhaust fast. We build to last years, not centuries. But this endures, this waits, This does not falter, and in its endurance it teaches us that time itself can be a form of intelligence. To last is to speak, to endure is to communicate, to continue is to prove. But even if it is not artificial, even if it is natural, even if it is only rock and ice and gravity, the effect on us is the same, because we cannot help but interpret. We cannot help but imagine. We cannot help but fill the ellipses with meaning. A natural object that looks designed challenges us as much as a designed object would. Either way, the universe has given us a riddle, and riddles change those who try to solve them. It reminds us too of our own fragility. We are young, we are brief, our history is short compared to its journey, our lifespans are flickers compared to its silence. To see it is to see scale, to see it is to feel humility, to see it is to know that we are not the center, we are not the measure, we are not the oldest, we are not the strongest, we are only one of many, and that recognition is profound. The further it moves, the less we can observe, but the more we must imagine. Already it has slipped beyond casual tracking. Already it fades into the dark. Soon it will vanish completely from our instruments, but vanishing from sight does not erase it. The story remains, the question remains, the awe remains. And perhaps that was always the point, not to remain visible, but to remain unforgettable. It slips further outward, past the boundary where sunlight still holds sway, toward the regions where darkness thickens, where cold becomes almost absolute, where silence feels eternal. Yet even as it leaves our vision, it does not leave our minds. Its presence lingers, its mystery deepens, its silence grows louder, because sometimes the more distant something becomes, the more powerful it feels. The ellipses mark every step of our relationship with it. Astronomers measure, pause. Theorists model, pause. Observers speculate. Each pause becomes longer than the act itself. Each silence becomes heavier than the words surrounding it. This is not absence. This is dialogue. A dialogue written in distance. A dialogue written in patience. A dialogue we do not fully understand but cannot ignore. We return again to its trajectory, hyperbolic, not bound to the sun, not circling back, not repeating. It came once, it will leave once, and then it will never return. This is not the orbit of a familiar neighbor. This is the path of a stranger that entered quietly, revealed only fragments, and departs without explanation. And in that brevity lies its power, because what is rare becomes precious, and what is brief becomes unforgettable. And yet, even in its brevity, the patterns trouble us. Why Venus, then Mars, then Jupiter? Why alignments that maximize observation of habitable worlds? Why a sequence that looks less like chaos and more like choreography? Coincidence, perhaps, but coincidence has limits. Coincidence repeated becomes pattern. Pattern repeated becomes intention. And intention, even suspected, changes everything. Its composition remains a puzzle. The dominance of carbon dioxide, the absence of dust, the early glow, each factor alone is unusual. Together they form a tapestry of strangeness. If this is natural, then nature has once again proven itself stranger than fiction. If this is artificial, then the disguise is subtle, clever, enduring. Either way, we are forced into humility, because the universe refuses to conform to our expectations. And so we turn to thought experiments. If you were building a probe to last forever, how would you build it? You would wrap it in stone and ice. You would disguise it as debris. You would let gravity carry it, so it would need no fuel. You would make it patient, not fast, silent, not loud, durable, not fragile. In short, you would make it indistinguishable from a comet. And so when we see something indistinguishable from a comet, yet different enough to trouble us, suspicion becomes inevitable. But suspicion is not certainty. Suspicion is only shadow, and shadow, like an eclipse, reveals only outline, never detail. Still, the outline itself is powerful, because outlines give form, Outlines let imagination fill in the rest, and what we imagine may be as important as what truly is. The ellipses stretch into history. Perhaps other civilizations have seen objects like this. Perhaps they too wondered. Perhaps they too speculated. Perhaps they too were unsettled. And maybe their stories, like ours, were reshaped forever. Imagine a species on another world, long before us, watching an interstellar object pass, asking the same questions, filling the same silences with meaning. We are not only watching 3I/Atlas, we are joining a lineage of watchers across time, a lineage that may never meet, but shares the same awe. What happens if it is relic? If its makers are gone? Then we are looking not only at an object, but at the memory of a civilization whose light has gone out, but whose artifact remains, a civilization that could not outlast its machines. The thought is haunting, because it forces us to consider our own fragility. Could the same fate await us? Will our machines one day drift while we are gone? Will another species look at them and wonder? Or perhaps it is not relic, but active. Perhaps it still listens. Perhaps it still sends. Perhaps it still evaluates. And if so, then what is it learning of us? What is it transmitting? What is it concluding? We do not know. We cannot know. But the possibility alone changes us. To be seen is to act differently. To be watched is to live differently. And now Earth itself feels like a stage. Humanity feels like a performance. The visitor feels like an audience. And maybe that is the point. Not to interfere, not to communicate, not to command, but simply to remind us that we are not alone, that our actions echo, that we are part of something larger, that we are noticed. The further it drifts, the more invisible it becomes, but the more visible we feel, because its silence amplifies our awareness. Its absence sharpens our reflection. Its distance deepens our humility. It has already done its work. It has already left its mark. It has already changed our story. And that is enough. It continues its journey, now past the great weight of Jupiter's pull, slipping further outward, toward the realm where sunlight weakens and planets give way to the kingdom of the deep. It does not slow. It does not falter. It does not announce itself. Its silence remains complete, its patience unbroken, its mystery intact. The ellipses we place into its story mirror its movement. Each observation, pause. Each theory, pause. Each doubt, pause. And in those pauses, imagination grows. We fill the gaps with fear. We fill them with hope. We fill them with awe. The object itself speaks nothing, but in its silence, it compels us to speak endlessly. It is not only astronomers who wonder now. Philosophers ask what it means to be observed. Artists imagine it as a vessel, a messenger, a seed. Poets give it voice in their verses. Even those who know little of the science feel the weight of the story. It spreads through human thought, like shadow across a field. The visitor has entered not only our solar system but our imagination, and once there it will never leave. The physical details remain the same, and yet they are enough to bend the mind. Its carbon dioxide coma steady, unnatural in its smoothness. Its absence of dust, a defiance of cometary norms. Its early glow, a contradiction of expected heat. Its balanced rotation, uncanny in its persistence. Each fact is small. Together they form a pattern of strangeness too rich to ignore. If it is natural, then it is nature at its strangest. If it is artificial, then it is design at its most subtle. Either way, it challenges us. It forces us to admit the limits of our understanding. It forces us to accept that we do not know all that is possible, and that acceptance itself is progress. Think of how it might appear up close. A dark body, cold to the touch, yet exhaling faint streams of gas like breath. A surface rough with fractures, yet balanced like a crafted wheel. A silence so deep it hums. We cannot approach it. We cannot intercept it. But to imagine it closely is to feel the chill of contact, the awe of presence, the gravity of mystery. And still we circle back to the same possibilities: probe, relic, seed, each one plausible in its own way, each one terrifying in its own way, each one comforting in its own way. If probe, then we are studied. If relic, then we are haunted. If seed, then we are kin. Which is true? Which is myth? Which is both? The ellipses refuse to close. The sentence remains unfinished. But perhaps that is the lesson. Not to finish the sentence, not to close the thought, to live inside the ellipses, to learn to dwell in uncertainty without collapsing into fear, to see mystery not as a threat, but as invitation to let awe be enough. Because awe itself transforms us. Awe makes us pause before destroying. Awe makes us humble before building. Awe makes us patient before rushing. And awe is what this object gives us most. Not data, not answers, not conclusions, but awe. And as it drifts further from our sight, that awe does not fade. It deepens, because distance sharpens the mind, because absence sharpens the memory, because what we can no longer measure, we must imagine, and imagination is endless. It will leave us. It will fade into the black. It will vanish from our charts. But it will not vanish from our story. Its silence will remain. Its question will remain. Its echo will remain. And that is enough to change us forever. It moves further now, beyond the last whispers of Jupiter's influence toward the frozen borderlands of our system, where Kuiper belt objects drift like ancient ghosts, where sunlight weakens to a faint memory, where silence thickens into something almost tangible. For us, it is leaving. For itself, perhaps, it is only passing from one stage of its journey into another. For us, the departure is an ending. For it, the departure is nothing at all. The ellipses lengthen in our attempts to follow. Observations grow sparse. Pause. Brightness decreases. Pause. Data becomes uncertain. Pause. The pauses themselves weigh heavier than the facts. And in those pauses we place meaning. The object has become less about what it is, and more about what it represents. And what it represents is vast. Think of the long arc of its path. 8,000 years ago it crossed the boundary of our system. 8,000 years ago, when the first human settlements were rising, when stories were carved into stone, when the sky was still a tapestry of gods, for all that time it was inbound, silent, patient, relentless. Now, as it leaves, we must ask, why now? Why us? Why this exact moment when humanity has just learned to reach into space, just learned to send machines beyond planets, just learned to hear the faintest signals, coincidence or convergence? Its composition remains an unresolved whisper. Too much carbon dioxide, too little water, outgassing too soon, rotation too balanced. Each anomaly is an eclipse of certainty. Each anomaly blocks what we think we know and forces us to see the corona of possibility surrounding it. Scientists explain cautiously, but their explanations end in hesitation. Papers trail into speculation. Models collapse under their own weight. The ellipses do not close. And in those open spaces, imagination grows. Imagine it as probe. Imagine it as relic. Imagine it as seed. Each thought has its own consequence. If probe, then we are studied. If relic, then we are reminded of mortality. If seed, then we are reminded of kinship. None of these possibilities can be proven. All of them shape us nonetheless. Suppose it is a probe. Then somewhere, someone knows us now. Someone has seen our lights, heard our signals, measured our world, and perhaps even now they evaluate. Perhaps they are indifferent. Perhaps they are curious. Perhaps they are cautious. We cannot know, but the thought alone changes us, because to imagine being observed is to behave differently. To imagine being measured is to think differently. Suppose it is a relic, then its makers are gone. Civilizations fall, species vanish, worlds change, but their artifact remains. And that artifact now brushes us. If so, then 3i/Atlas is not only a visitor, it is a tombstone, a monument to intelligence that once was, a reminder that what is alive today may be dust tomorrow. And in that reminder is both terror and humility. Suppose it is a seed, then it carries life, or the potential of life, or the memory of life. Perhaps not for us, but for worlds it may one day reach. In that version, the galaxy is not only vast but fertile, intelligence not only possible but inevitable, life not a miracle but a pattern, and in that pattern we are not isolated. We are kin. Each of these possibilities reshapes us. Each of them eclipses the narrow story we tell ourselves that Earth is alone, that humanity is central, that we are the measure of all things. Each possibility tears at that illusion. Each possibility opens the sky wider. And the sky itself changes for us because of this. To look up is no longer only to see stars, but to see questions. No longer only to see light, but to see mystery. No longer only to see beauty, but to see presence. The visitor has done this, not by speaking, not by acting, but simply by existing where we could see it. The ellipses multiply as it recedes. Our measurements falter, pause. Our certainty weakens, pause. Our imagination strengthens, pause. Soon it will vanish from detection. Soon it will be only a point of memory. But memory is enough, because memory is story, and story outlasts even the objects that inspired it. Already, its story is part of us. Already it has become mirror, symbol, lesson. Already it has changed the way we imagine ourselves in the universe. Whether natural or artificial, probe or relic or seed, it has achieved something profound. It has reminded us that we are not all-knowing, that we are not central, that we are not alone in our wonder. And that reminder will remain long after it is gone. It keeps going beyond the bright stage of planets, into the dim corridors where icy bodies drift slowly forgotten by suns. To us, the distance is daunting, but to it, perhaps distance is irrelevant. To us, time feels urgent, but to it, perhaps time does not exist. This is the difference between what we are and what we imagine it to be. We burn fast. It endures. We rush. It waits. We demand answers. It offers silence. The ellipses follow us as we follow it. We gather one last round of measurements. Pause. We compare to models. Pause. We fail to match expectation. Pause. Every pause lengthens. Every pause echoes. The object itself does not change, but the weight of its meaning grows heavier in our minds. If it is a natural body, then it is one of the strangest ever observed. Its composition refuses to fit cometry norms. Its early glow challenges the rules of heat and distance. Its symmetry resists chaos. Natural or not, it is not ordinary. And when the ordinary fails, we reach for the extraordinary. We imagine artifice. We imagine design. We imagine intention. Imagine again that it is probe, a machine hidden in stone, a watcher wrapped in ice. Its purpose not to speak, not to land, not to interfere, but simply to pass by, to notice, to record. It does not matter if its creators are alive or gone, its function continues. And in that function we become object of study. To think of ourselves as specimen unsettles us. To think of ourselves as data changes the way we see ourselves. Imagine it as relic, a survivor of a civilization long dead, their language lost, their culture erased, their world silent, and yet their artifact still drifts, still moves, still follows its course, a ghost with no voice, but with presence strong enough to shake us. Relics teach us of mortality. Relics remind us of fragility. Relics humble us. Imagine it as seed, a vessel of beginnings, a carrier of potential life, a gardener that scatters possibility across the galaxy. If this is true, then we are kin with its makers. We are not unique. We are not alone. We are part of a larger pattern, a cosmic cycle of birth and rebirth, and that thought does not diminish us. It enlarges us. The ellipses between these possibilities are unending. Probe, pause. Relic, pause. Seed, pause. Each thought powerful, each thought incomplete. And maybe they are all true at once. Maybe the categories we impose are too small. Maybe its purpose is larger than our imagination can reach. What matters most is not which interpretation is correct, but the fact that we must interpret at all, the fact that we are compelled to fill the silence with meaning, the fact that its presence awakens wonder. That is the gift it leaves us. Even as it fades, we speak of it more. Even as it disappears, its story grows. Even as it vanishes, its echo spreads. Already it is myth as much as object. Already it is philosophy as much as science. Already it is reflection as much as observation. And when it is gone completely, when no telescope can trace it, when no data remains to analyze, the myth will endure. Humanity will still tell the story. Humanity will still wonder what it was. Humanity will still look at the night sky differently, because once something passed through that refused to be explained. It may not speak, it may not act, it may not reveal, but it has already changed us. That alone is in contact. That alone is enough. It drifts now into the quiet regions where only the most patient instruments can trace it, into the outskirts where sunlight is weaker than a lantern glimpsed from across an ocean, into the dark where objects older than Earth itself float in silence. We know it is still there. We know it continues. But already it has passed from presence into memory. Already it belongs more to imagination than to observation. And imagination is restless. The ellipses in its story grow longer, heavier, more charged. Each one feels like a space deliberately left unfilled. Not error, not oversight. Intention. The object itself may not intend, but the silence it creates feels intentional to us. That is how humans think. We cannot look at gaps without filling them. We cannot stare at shadow without inventing shape. So what shape do we invent? The probe remains a powerful thought, a machine cloaked as rock, a watcher hidden in ice. Its patience unlike ours, its endurance beyond us, its silence deliberate. We imagine its inner core, an architecture of materials we cannot name, systems that do not corrode, memory that does not fade. We imagine instruments recording wavelengths we have not yet discovered, measuring physics we have not yet defined. If so, then we are already seen in ways we do not understand. Our lights, our signals, our presence, already logged, already stored, already transmitted. But Relic is equally haunting. A civilization long gone, a world long dead, and yet their artifact endures, outlasting their oceans, outlasting their skies, outlasting their names. To see it is to see survival without survivors. To see it is to face the possibility of our own end. For what are we building now that could endure beyond us? What will remain of us when we are gone? Perhaps one day our probes, our satellites, our fragments will drift as 3I/Atlas drifts, reminders without context, echoes without voice. Seed is different. Seed is hopeful. Seed is promise, a carrier of beginnings, a gardener's tool for worlds that have not yet awakened. If so, then the galaxy is not barren, but fertile. Life is not accident, but pattern, and we are not unique, but part of a cycle. This possibility comforts us, because it makes us family, not alone, not central, not singular, but kin in a garden too vast to see. The ellipses between these thoughts stretch long. Probe, pause, relic, pause, seed, pause, none resolved, all compelling. Perhaps it is all three. Perhaps the divisions are ours alone. Perhaps what it truly is lies outside the words we know, outside the categories we build, outside the imagination we trust. And yet, its greatest effect may not be in what it is, but in what it does to us. It unsettles, it humbles, it forces reflection, it compels awe, it makes us see ourselves through the possibility of another's eyes, and that shift is enormous, because to see yourself as object of attention is to see yourself differently. To realize you are not invisible is to realize you are not alone. Already it has altered our narrative. Already it has slipped into culture, into art, into conversation, into philosophy, into dreams. Children will grow up hearing of it, not as data but as story. Writers will fold it into myth. Thinkers will use it as metaphor. For centuries to come, its silence will echo. This is how mystery works. It does not need resolution. It does not need answers. It only needs to endure long enough to take root. And 3I/Atlas has already taken root. It is now as much part of humanity as the constellations, as the eclipses, as the comets of old that once terrified and inspired. Soon it will vanish beyond tracking. Soon no eye on earth will see it. Soon it will be gone. But gone is not the same as erased. It has written itself into us, and that story will outlast its passing, because some visitors do not remain to be studied. Some visitors remain by becoming unforgettable, and this one has already done so. It drifts now into the silence beyond the giants, beyond the orbit of Neptune where the Kuiper Belt begins its long sprawl of frozen bodies, fragments of the early solar system, untouched, unchanged, drifting like fossils of creation. Among them, 3I/Atlas slides. To any casual glance, it is only another shadow, only another stone, only another cold wanderer among billions. But we know, we remember, we watched it pass, and that memory refuses to release its grip. The ellipses of distance grow longer. Detection, pause. Calculation, pause. Error margin, pause. Each pause holds more silence than the fact that preceded it. Each pause becomes part of the story. In the darkness of distance, silence is louder than sound. Its trajectory remains exact, not pulled into orbit, not perturbed into chaos, not scattered by encounters, smooth, stable, confident. If natural, then it is astonishing. If artificial, then it is flawless. In both cases, it resists the ordinary, and resistance to the ordinary is what makes us pause. What if it is probe? The thought refuses to fade, even as scientists caution restraint. Even as mathematicians prove probabilities, the thought remains. A machine cloaked as comet, an instrument disguised as debris, a watcher designed not to be seen yet impossible to ignore once noticed. Its silence is not absence, it is strategy. Its endurance is not accident, it is design. And its passing is not random, it is purposeful. What if it is relic? The image haunts us, a civilization long gone, erased by time, erased by catastrophe, erased by inevitability, and yet their artifact survives, still gliding, still functioning, still carrying out commands written in languages no longer spoken. To see it is to see mortality reflected, to see it is to see what might become of us. To see it is to know that even the brightest lights can vanish, leaving only shadows to drift forever. What if it is seed? This thought comforts. A gardener's tool, a vessel of beginnings, a carrier of life, potential, code, possibility. If so, then we are kin with its makers, kin in a galaxy that plants, not isolates, kin in a universe that shares, not hoards. The seed thought transforms fear into belonging. It replaces isolation with kinship. It makes us part of something vast. Probe, relic, seed, the ellipses stretch between them. None excluded, none confirmed, each one possible, each one powerful. The object refuses to close the sentence. It leaves us hanging in thought, suspended in awe. And perhaps that is its purpose. not to tell but to unsettle, not to answer but to question, not to resolve but to awaken, because a question can live longer than an answer. A question can shape centuries. A question can alter destiny. Already, it has altered ours. It has forced us to look outward with new humility. It has reminded us that we are small, brief, fragile. It has reminded us that patience may be as powerful as technology, that silence may be as meaningful as noise, that endurance may be as significant as brilliance. And when it fades beyond even the Kuiper belt, when it slides into the Oort cloud where comets are born and silence is eternal, the story will not fade with it. Humanity will still tell it. Humanity will still wonder. Humanity will still remember that once something passed this way that eclipsed certainty and left only awe. That memory is now part of us, and that is enough. It glides further outward, past Neptune's faint dominion, into the scattered disk, where icy fragments roam in slow exile. Here the sun is no longer ruler but distant lantern, its warmth stretched thin, its gravity stretched long. The space between worlds is vast, and 3I/Atlas makes that vastness feel deeper still. It is almost gone from sight, almost beyond our ability to hold. And yet, in imagination, it is closer than ever. The ellipses of its silence lengthen, telescopes strain, pause, data weakens, pause, numbers blur, pause. Each gap is larger than the one before. Each gap is louder than the information we manage to collect. And in those gaps, the story swells. Its stability remains the most troubling clue. Natural bodies betray themselves in motion, spins irregular, wobbling, tumbling. But 3I/Atlas moves with the confidence of balance, even rotation, measured release of gas, a body that behaves less like accident and more like design. If natural, then it is extraordinary. If artificial, then it is a masterpiece. Probe still lingers as possibility, a watcher cloaked as wanderer, a machine disguised as debris, not transmitting openly, but perhaps recording endlessly, not calling out, but perhaps listening in silence. It does not need to announce itself, because its very presence is enough. Already it has altered us. Already it has shifted how we see the cosmos. That is a kind of communication, even if no signal is ever sent. Relic remains haunting. If its makers are gone, then it is the voice of extinction, a survivor of silence, a monument that drifts without care for who sees it. To encounter it is to glimpse mortality written in motion, to know that civilizations can vanish, leaving only fragments, and in that knowledge is humility, a reminder that our time too is fragile. Seed continues to inspire hope, a gardener's tool for galaxies, a vessel scattering beginnings. If this is true, then life is not miracle but expectation, not anomaly but pattern, not rare but abundant. To imagine 3I/Atlas as seed is to imagine ourselves as part of a larger family, not alone, not central, not isolated, but kin among countless others, each planted in different soils of different suns. The ellipses between these interpretations refuse to close. Probe, pause. Relic, pause. Seed, pause. Each word powerful, each pause heavier. The object will not resolve for us. The object will not decide. We are left to live inside the question. And perhaps that is the true lesson, that to live in wonder is to live awake. Already, the visitor has crossed from object to myth. Already, it has become symbol, metaphor, story. Already, its silence echoes in art, in philosophy, in the quiet thoughts of those who look up at night and wonder. That echo will outlast its light. That echo will remain long after it is gone. And soon, it will be gone, beyond detection, beyond pursuit, beyond reach, but it will not be beyond memory. Memory will hold it, story will carry it, wonder will preserve it, and in that preservation it becomes more than it ever was. It becomes part of who we are. It becomes part of what Earth has seen. It becomes part of how we imagine our place in the dark, and that is enough to keep it alive forever. It drifts now toward the unseen frontier, the place where the Kuiper belt thins into the vast halo of the Oort cloud, a realm so far away that sunlight is no more than memory, a faint glow barely touching the ice of forgotten worlds. Out here, silence is thicker, darkness is deeper, patience is endless, and through that endlessness, three Atlas glides. The ellipses in its story grow longer. Telescopes attempt a final lock. Pause. The data arrives too faint. Pause. Analysts stretch the models further than they were meant to reach. Pause. Each attempt is swallowed by silence. Each silence is heavier than the facts we scrape together. It is almost as if the universe is asking us to let go. But letting go does not erase it. If anything, the distance enlarges it. The less we can observe, the more we imagine. The less we can measure, the more we reflect. The object itself slips from us, but the story refuses to. The story grows larger with every mile it leaves behind. Its balanced spin remains a riddle. Its measured exhalations remain a contradiction. Its timing remains uncanny. We can call it natural, but natural does not ease the suspicion. We can call it artificial, but artificial does not ease the mystery. Whatever name we give it, it remains something other than what we expected, other than what we can explain. If probe, then its silence is signal, a deliberate refusal to announce, a watcher that does not interfere, a guest that does not intrude. Its very restraint feels intelligent, its patience feels designed, its presence feels intentional, and in that restraint it speaks more loudly than words ever could. If relic, then it is survival without survivors, a ghost that drifts while its makers lie buried beneath extinct suns. Its endurance frightens us because it outlasts not only lives but civilizations, it outlasts meaning itself. And yet, in that endurance is lesson, that even if we vanish, fragments may endure, fragments that strangers one day may see and wonder about as we wonder now. If seed, then it is promise, a gardener's whisper, a carrier of beginnings meant for worlds we have never seen. It may not be for us, it may not be for now, but to imagine it as seed is to imagine the galaxy itself as fertile, to imagine life not as chance but as rule, to imagine that what we are is part of something larger, something older, something eternal. Probe, relic, seed. The ellipses between them stretch wide. Each possibility excludes none. Each possibility reshapes us. The object itself does not decide. We must decide what it is, or else live in the question. Perhaps the question itself is the gift. For what is awe, if not the recognition that we do not know? Awe is not answer, but awareness. Awe is not certainty, but suspension. Awe is not conclusion, but opening. And awe is what 3I/Atlas has given us most of all. Even now, as it fades beyond reach, it lingers in culture, in thought, in imagination. It has already joined the catalogue of myths, the constellations of stories we carry forward. Not just a comet, not just a rock, not just a visitor, but a symbol of the unknown, a reminder of patience, a reminder of silence, a reminder of humility. And soon, though it will vanish from our instruments entirely, it will remain alive in us. Because once a story enters humanity, it does not leave. It changes, it evolves, it adapts, but it does not die. And this story, our encounter with silence dressed as stone, will endure long after the object itself is gone. It has passed through our system. It has passed through our awareness. And now it has passed into who we are. It slips deeper now into the imagined ocean of the Oort cloud, where trillions of icy bodies drift, uncounted and unseen, where the gravity of the sun stretches but does not dominate, where the boundary between system and galaxy begins to blur. Out here, distance is beyond comprehension, silence is beyond measure, patience is beyond time, and through that immensity, 3I/Atlas continues. The ellipses expand with its departure. Last observations. Pause. Last predictions. Pause. Last fragments of data, sifted and stored. Pause. The pauses outweigh the content. The silence outweighs the noise, and silence itself becomes message. If it is probe, then perhaps this is when it begins to send. Not to us, but beyond us. Past the range of our listening, past the capacity of our machines. It may already have transmitted what it saw. Our lights, our noise, our world. The message may already be on its way. To whom, we cannot know. But to imagine that transmission is to feel the immensity of scale. Our entire planet, reduced to data, carried across stars. If it is relic, then it drifts now without witness. No makers to receive, no civilization to answer, no audience at all, a ghost wandering into deeper silence. Yet in that ghostliness lies a mirror. If they vanished, so could we. If their light faded, so could ours. And to think this is not despair but clarity. It reminds us of fragility. It reminds us of responsibility. It reminds us that endurance must be earned, not assumed. If it is seed, then perhaps its journey is only beginning. The Oort cloud is not destination but departure. From here, nudged by distant stars, it may one day cross into another system, another world, another set of eyes. To them, it will be what it is to us. Mystery, silence, question, and so its cycle continues. A gardener scattering beginnings across galaxies. A pattern older than memory. A story larger than history. Probe, relic, seed. Still, none resolved. Still, all possible. Still, the ellipses between them stretch wide, and perhaps they will never close. Perhaps they are not meant to. Perhaps living inside the ellipses is what makes us grow. Perhaps dwelling in mystery is what keeps us awake. Already, we are changed. Not by answers, but by questions. Not by facts, but by awe. We look at our world differently now. We look at ourselves differently now. We look at the sky not only as backdrop, but as stage. And we wonder who else has stood on their own worlds, watching similar visitors, asking the same unanswerable questions. That kinship, imagined though it may be, enlarges us. It makes us more than isolated. It makes us part of something invisible but real. The shared awe of civilizations separated by distance but united in wonder. The object becomes bridge, not between us and its makers, but between us and the idea of others, between us and the scale of the universe, between us and humility. And so, as 3I/Atlas fades, the story grows. Silence becomes myth. Mystery becomes legacy. Its presence becomes permanent, not in the sky but in our memory. It will not vanish, because memory does not release stories that change us. This is its gift, not certainty, not revelation, but transformation, and transformation endures. It passes now into the farthest reaches of what we can even imagine as our system, into the borderlands where the Oort cloud dissolves into the galaxy itself, where the pull of our sun grows weaker than the tug of distant stars, where the line between home and away is erased. Out here there is no boundary. Out here silence is not interruption. It is the natural state, and through that silence, 3I/Atlas moves without pause. The ellipses of our understanding widen. We cannot measure any more. Pause. We cannot confirm any more. Pause. We cannot follow any more. Pause. And yet, the absence is not failure. It is invitation. Invitation to wonder. Invitation to imagine. Invitation to reflect. If probe, then its mission continues far beyond our sight. We are no longer its subject. We are only one stop along its endless path. What it learned of us, whatever it learned, has already been stored, already perhaps transmitted, already beyond us. We cannot know what was taken, what was seen, what was judged, but the idea that we were measured is enough, enough to change us, enough to place us in a larger story than we thought ourselves part of. If relic, then it drifts without audience. Its makers are dust, its homeworld erased, its context forgotten, and yet it continues. Endurance without meaning, survival without memory. A fragment of intelligence that has outlasted intelligence itself. To think of this is haunting, because it forces us to see time not as our measure, but as something that erases us. If it happened to them, it could happen to us, and that possibility reshapes how we see our future. If seed, then this is only the beginning of its purpose. Carried by gravity and chance, it may one day fall inward to another star, another system, another world, and there it may awaken. There it may scatter beginnings. There it may repeat the cycle. In this thought, it is not ghost but gardener, not relic but promise. And in that promise we are not alone, we are family. Probe, relic, seed, still unresolved, still suspended, still stretching the ellipses of our thought. Perhaps it is all of them, perhaps it is none of them. Perhaps our categories are too small, too simple, too human to describe what it truly is. And maybe that is the final lesson, that the universe does not exist to fit our definitions, that the cosmos is larger than our language, that mystery is not failure, but scale. And so, though it is leaving us, though it is slipping into the dark where no eye can follow, its effect does not end, it echoes. In science it remains anomaly, in philosophy it remains question, in art it remains symbol, in imagination it remains alive. It has crossed through our system once, and once is enough, enough to remind us of humility, enough to remind us of possibility, enough to remind us of awe. The object continues outward, but its story continues inward within us, and that story will not fade. It moves now into interstellar space, leaving the sun behind as just another star, among countless others, leaving our planets as faint whispers in the dark, leaving Earth as nothing more than a memory of light. From here it is no longer a visitor inside our home, but a traveler between homes. From here, its journey belongs to the galaxy itself. The ellipses grow vast. We cannot track. Pause, we cannot measure. Pause, we cannot even imagine its exact position. Pause, all that remains is story. And story is enough, because story lasts where data fades. Story endures where memory falters. Story grows where silence deepens. If probe, then perhaps now it awakens fully. Perhaps its purpose was never to linger, never to stop, but to move from system to system, harvesting knowledge, storing records, transmitting silence into signals. To us, it is gone. To it, the mission continues. Across distances too immense for us to name, it carries what it learned of us, our glow, our noise, our fragile balance. We cannot know who, if anyone, waits for that transmission, but even to imagine it is to feel our scale shift. If relic, then it is lonelier than ever, a survivor without witnesses, a monument without meaning, and yet it endures. Its makers long gone, but their creations still alive in motion. What does it say about them? That their artifact outlasted their memory. What does it say about us? That we can see the fragment, but not the full story. Perhaps that is all relics ever are. Fragments without context, puzzles without resolution, and in them we are forced to confront not only their mortality, but our own. If seed, then this is its soil, the galaxy itself, a garden not bound to a single star, but spread across billions. From system to system it may carry beginnings. From darkness to darkness it may scatter light. From silence to silence it may whisper life. In that vision we are not alone. We are kin in an infinite garden, not rare, not fragile, not isolated, but part of a larger pattern that will continue long after us. Probe, relic, seed. The words circle again, each possibility compelling, each pause between them heavy, and still none confirmed. The ellipses do not close. They stretch into forever. Perhaps that is the final truth. Not that it is one or the other, but that it remains unknowable, that its power lies not in what it is, but in what it makes us see. And what it makes us see is profound. It makes us see patience. It makes us see silence. It makes us see endurance. It makes us see ourselves against scales we rarely dare to imagine. It humbles us. It unsettles us. It enlarges us. Though it is gone, it is not gone. Though it leaves us, it remains with us. In science, it lingers as anomaly. In philosophy, it lingers as question. In imagination, it lingers as presence. It has already done what it came to do, whether by design or by accident. It has reminded us that we are not the measure of all things. That mystery is larger than certainty. That awe is stronger than knowledge. And in that reminder, it has made itself eternal. It drifts now beyond all boundaries we can name, past the faintest edge of the Oort cloud, into the open sea of interstellar space. Here there is no orbit, no return, no anchor. It belongs to no star. It belongs to the galaxy itself. The sun becomes only one among billions. Earth becomes only a fragile whisper of light behind it. And 3I/Atlas moves forward, without hesitation, without resistance, without end. The ellipses in its story are now infinite. Observation ended, pause. Calculation ended, pause. Tracking ended, pause. All that remains is memory, myth, reflection. It has passed beyond the reach of our machines, but not beyond the reach of our thoughts. Its physical presence fades, but its symbolic presence strengthens. In absence, it becomes eternal. If probe, then it is a messenger without borders, a traveler whose mission stretches across stars, not systems. It does not pause for civilizations. It does not end with encounters. It moves endlessly, carrying fragments of observation from one star to another. If so, then we are only a chapter in its journey, a fleeting page in a book that stretches across galaxies. It will not stop for us, but we may remain in its memory, stored in silence, transmitted to destinations we will never know. If relic, then it is a ghost wandering forever, a fragment of intelligence whose makers are dust, a survivor of extinction carrying no message, no audience, no purpose but survival itself. And yet, even purposeless survival has meaning, because it shows us endurance beyond death. It shows us time beyond civilization. It shows us scale beyond comprehension. To see it as relic is to see ourselves reflected, not only in life, but in the inevitability of silence. If seed, then its journey is only the scattering of possibility, drifting into new stars, drawn into new systems, one day captured, one day planted. It may rest dormant for aeons until a star's pull drags it inward, until warmth wakes it, until it releases what it carries, and then life may begin again, different, distant, but related. In this version, it is not ghost, but gardener, not silence, but promise, not end, but beginning. Probe, relic, seed. The circle repeats, each thought expands, each pause stretches, and still the ellipses do not resolve. The object leaves us with unfinished sentences. Perhaps that is its gift, to leave us suspended, to leave us open, to leave us questioning forever. And yet, in this uncertainty, there is clarity, the clarity that we are not all-knowing, the clarity that the universe is larger than our categories, the clarity that silence itself is a form of contact. 3I/Atlas has shown us that we do not need answers to be changed. We do not need proof to be transformed. Wonder itself is enough. Now, as it disappears into the void, its presence within us is stronger than ever. Scientists will still write of it. Artists will still dream of it. Philosophers will still reflect on it. Children will still hear of it as story. Long after its faint glow is gone, its echo will remain. It has already left Earth, but it will never leave humanity. It is gone now, past the point where even our most powerful instruments can reach, past the reach of memory written in data, past the threshold where sunlight itself no longer matters. Out there, in the deep interstellar dark, 3I/Atlas continues its journey, patient as always, silent as always, unknowable as always. And yet, though the object has left us, it has not left our story. For once something brushes the edge of human imagination, it remains forever. The ellipses it gave us are still here. The pauses it left us with are still heavy in our minds. The questions it inspired still alive in our conversations. Its silence is not gone. Its silence is here, reshaping us still. Probe, relic, seed. The words circle once more, like planets around a star. Each possibility remains. Each possibility expands, none resolved. Perhaps none ever will be. And perhaps that is not failure. Perhaps that is the point, to remind us that mystery itself is the greatest teacher, to remind us that certainty is not the only path, to remind us that awe is a form of knowledge all its own. Think of what it gave us. Not answers, but reflection. Not communication, but presence. Not instruction, but humility. It made us look outward with wonder. It made us look inward with honesty. It made us measure ourselves not by our own scale, but by cosmic scale. That is no small gift. That is transformation. And transformation endures. Long after the object itself is gone, long after it is only a myth carried in story, the change remains. We are more humble now, more awake, more aware of silence, more aware of fragility, more aware of possibility. This is how encounters with mystery shape us. They do not close doors, they open them. Somewhere far ahead, perhaps another civilization will see it. Perhaps they too will wonder. Perhaps they too will ask. Perhaps they too will fill the ellipses with their own hopes, their own fears, their own reflections. And in that way the object binds us together, not directly, but through shared awe across time, across distance, across species. The galaxy itself becomes a web of wonder, each civilization tied by questions to the same silence. This is what it means to live in a universe where the unknown is greater than the known. It is not despair. It is not defeat. It is gift, because mystery is infinite. And in mystery we find endless reason to dream. 3I/Atlas is gone, but it has left us with that gift. And so, as this story closes, we thank the silence for what it has given us. We thank the pauses for what they taught us. We thank the object for what it made us see. We may never know what it was, but we will never forget what it became. Good night. Wherever you are watching from, whether city or countryside, whether north or south, east or west, leave a comment to let us know your place on Earth, because each of you is part of this shared wonder. And remember to like this video if it brought you peace, and subscribe to Simply About Earth for more journeys into awe. Sleep well, and let the silence of the stars carry you.